Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the 261st edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I'm your host, Steve Wellings, and joining me on the call this evening, we have Dave the Hater Lowback, Donny Baseball, Andy Patterson, Ozzy Smith, and we also have a very special guest joining us right at the beginning of the show, the first of possibly 3 or even 4 guests this evening. We have Ross Cooksey, aka Ross the Boss. How are you this evening, Ross?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm very good. Are you?
Yeah, I'm keeping well. Thanks very much. We're going to have
Good.
Ross for the next 5 minutes or so. He's a fledgling professional, age 25, from Barrow-in-Furness, which is in the north of England, in case anybody's wondering about that. He's 4-0 with 1 knockout. Who do you train with at the moment, Ross? Who's your coach?
I train with Steve Egan from the Withenshaw gym. Jimmy Egan's in Manchester currently, yeah.
And that goes well, does it? You're happy enough with your... What's your sort of training regime, your schedule day to day?
Well, I work in Barrow-in-Furness 4 days on, and then I have 4 days off. So I train up here at Barrow, and then I come through and stay in a hotel in Withenshaw and do 3 sessions a day for 4 days in Withenshaw with Steve.
Oh, that's interesting then. So you're staying in a hotel, you're staying away from home, and these are the type of sacrifices you have to make as a young professional to make it in this game.
They are, especially boxing on the small hall shows. Obviously, you've not got a lot of backing at early days, and you've got to build a name for yourself, haven't you? So it's what I've got to do, and it's what I want to do. So I'm just got to keep going and see how far we can push it.
There are quite a few obstacles you have to come up against early on in your career: getting sponsors, selling tickets, keeping motivated. What's the toughest thing you think about being a professional boxer?
I'd probably say selling tickets is probably the toughest. Although I've done quite well in my first 4 fights with tickets and stuff, you also speak to many others who struggle, and you see it in the training and when you go sparring and stuff like that, and everybody's in the same boat. They're all talking of, oh, it's hard selling tickets and people want to come and then they drop out, and it is. I'd say that's the hardest part of the pros for me so far. Just getting people to buy them, really.
You've boxed on quite a few Steve Woods shows. I mean, if you guys are all from the same sort of area, you sell into the same sort of clientele as well. So you maybe have to put word out on Facebook or something, try and get people in that way.
You're right. Everyone's selling to sort of the same people and stuff like that, really, because everyone knows everyone around them shows and that. So yeah, it's difficult, but it's what you've got to do, I suppose.
I'm just looking on the BoxRec rankings here, Ross. Obviously, you're sort of down the pecking order when it comes to featherweight, given the fact you've only had 4 fights. Where do you see yourself going in the future? Maybe aspire towards British title, something like that in the short term?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I just like to keep winning and see what titles come. But yeah, obviously British would be a massive achievement. But in terms of featherweights, me and the team at the minute, we're trying to get down to super bantamweight, where we think I might be a bit stronger and stuff like that. So we're actually working on getting at super bantamweight. So and there's also not as many super bantamweights in the country as featherweights, is there? So I'd probably have a better ranking.
Just to remind our listeners, we've got Ross Cooksey on the line. It's RJ Cooksey92 over on Twitter and Instagram, so go get following him. Just looking at your inspiration about getting into boxing, what inspired you? Which fighters did you look up to on the way on up?
Well, it was actually a story through my brother, my older brother. He's a couple of years older. He had a couple of amateur fights, and I used to just go sit and watch him and be quite inspired by him. And then eventually when he gave it up, we used to sit and watch Prince Nassim videos. And I really liked Prince Nassim growing up. But then I had a couple of years of obviously not being in the gym because my brother had stopped. But then eventually I just said to myself, you know what? I loved going to watch him, and I loved watching Prince Nassim on videos and stuff. So I'm just going to go back down. And that was also with 2 of my friends were doing quite well as amateurs coming through. So I just thought it was always something I liked watching and stuff as a kid. So I thought, let's give it a go, see what happens.
Have you ever been tempted to wear the leopard skin shorts and jump in over the top rope yet?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not Naz. No.
What is your style, Ross? Are you come forward? Are you a boxer? Are you southpaw? How do you fight?
Yeah, I'm an orthodox fighter. I'd like to, I'd like to say I come forward. I'm fairly aggressive, but sort of sort of counter punch aggressive, where you sort of in range all the time, but you're hoping that you're gonna make them miss and you're gonna counter, but being in range rather than on the back foot, sort of. Yeah.
And when's your next fight so the guys can keep an eye out for you? When are you next in the ring?
I think I'm in the ring at the end of April. I was supposed to be on a 17th of March show, Victoria Warehouse, but it's fell through the show, so now it's been put back all the way till the end of April. I think that's the 28th of April. I think that's going to be at Victoria Warehouse again. So yeah.
Excellent stuff, no problem. Like I said, if you want to go and follow Ross, it's at RJ Cooksey92 on Twitter or Instagram. Any final comments, any final thoughts for the listeners, Ross, before we let you go?
No, just thanks for having me on. I'd be happy to come on again. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
No problem at all. Best of the luck with your next fight and all the fights after that as well.
Okay, thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, Ross. All the best.
Bye. Bye.
Ross Cooksey there. We shall keep an eye out on him in the future. Thank you to Michael for hooking us up with Ross. He's from Barrow. We'll look forward to that. Who have we got on the call? I think Smido's joined us. Smido, it's always good to have you on. How are you?
Good evening. I'm coming on to represent the casuals this evening. Big fight next week that I'm looking forward to be fair.
Excellent. That should be a brilliant fight. Did you watch anything of Miguel Berchelt over the weekend, Smido?
No, I thought about should I record it. Then I looked and the guys, the fella who he was fighting was from, I've never heard of him, and his last two opponents, I tweeted about it in the week, his last two opponents won losing runs of like 9 and 11 or something. So yeah, I didn't bother. It was quick 3-round blast out, was it? Yeah. It was,
Smido. It wasn't great. I think Awuku was brought in for one reason, and he pretty much lived up to all expectations.
Yeah, it's a shame really because Berchelt is pretty decent. He came from a bit left field for someone like me who doesn't follow it further away from the champions. Got a good couple of wins, and this could be some really big fights on the horizon for him. But to fight, we let some people get away with having a keep busy fight, but that was taking the piss a little bit.
Smido's not happy. Hey to Dave Lowback. What did you think about Berchelt? He got the right hand going early on. Mr. Awuku, southpaw that he was, tried to have a little bit of a go, but he was never going to be winning the fight. It was pretty poor fare all round.
Yeah, Berchelt is a really good fighter. This was kind of pointless. I would say I prefer what Awuku did to what Mijares would have done, because I believe Mijares is just he's definitely past his best, and I'm sure probably a better fighter than Awuku, but he's just skilled enough and just scared enough that he probably would have made that go the full 12 rounds. And I mean, who would want to sit through that? I wouldn't have bothered watching it if it had been a decision. So at least it was a stoppage, and Awuku did land a few punches. But Berchelt was very poised, very confident, didn't seem in any bother at all. So routine destruction. Let's get him on to the next couple of fights. And I don't think the Mijares fight being cancelled is any loss.
No loss, Donny says, hey to Dave for Mijares. Would you have rather seen Mijares in? Maybe James Tennyson, vulnerable, but a bit of a puncher all the same, rather than Mr. Awuku, a prison canteen graduate, Donny?
Well, you never can go wrong with them. Usually the prison canteen graduates bring it. Yeah, to be honest with you, I actually couldn't find a stream of this one. Sadly, there was no boxing to be found this weekend, unfortunately, on the American television screens. And like I said, I couldn't find a stream of this fight. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'm kind of at a loss here. I don't know if anybody else got a chance to see it, but I didn't. So I'm sorry.
That's okay. Don't need to be sorry, Donny. Andy, did you manage to catch a stream? I'm sure you saw this one. Putting this one to one side, it was a keep busy fight for Berchelt. I think you were like me, Andy, just sort of flicked through the preliminary bouts and went straight to the main course. I
think I said that last week, mate. I wasn't really too problematic with the fight last week because he's had 2 hard fights back to back. I suppose you're entitled to some sort of kind of easy fight, while you're waiting for maybe a big one to come up. he was just bigger than the guy. The guy never offered any much resistance. I thought. Poor all round. I mean, I was saying with that other fight I'd watched. Who was the chief support? Forget the names of the guys I knew actually, but that guy was like massive. But it was what it was, wasn't it? It was just a keep busy fight. It was something that kind of like obviously kind of tick his air, but not enough. But we've had it good the last couple of weeks, I suppose.
We certainly have. We're going to get it good next week as well, Ozzy. A couple of fights in America, and of course the big one, Groves-Eubank, which we will be moving on to later on. Excuse me. Miguel Berchelt getting past Awuku, but it's the likes of Machado, Ozzy, we want to see him in with. The likes of Lomachenko, Gervonta Davis, Tevin Farmer, the bigger challengers than this guy.
Yes, definitely. As a couple of others have said, he picked up a knock. He's used this as a bit of a comeback fight. I think the opponent was very last minute because of a previous withdrawal, taking off in a way. He was absolutely abysmal, but like I said, it's kept him busy. It's got him out there, and I think they are talking about the Machado fight as a unification now. So that's obviously one that's welcomed, and if that can happen next, then obviously it's definitely one to look forward to.
Ozzy, just before you disappear, we've had a question from David Lincoln on the Twitter feed just coming now. I'm going to hit you with it straight away. David says, if you were an English prospect, which promoter would you sign with and why? My view is that neither the crap WBO belt title defences of Frank or the fake beef and bullshit of Eddie are good options to build a career. But, as I would add, I mean, what are the alternatives realistically?
I would do what Mick Conlon did, sign with Bob Arum. Because Bob is proven. Bob is ageless. Bob has outlasted some of the best. Well, he's basically outlasted everybody. He's still going strong. And he has the ability to build a fighter. Now, I don't know how much credit Bob gets for it at this stage. I mean, the guy's like 88 or I don't know how old he is. He's ancient, but
he never dies, man.
He's built a good team, I think, that can still build a fighter. So I think Bob's strong. Also, Tom Loeffler, he did a very good job building Golovkin. I might sign with him too.
And before he got knocked out by Rungvisai, he did a great job building Chocolatito as well.
Absolutely, and I mean Chocolatito getting knocked out. I mean it was inevitable eventually. I mean these little guys get old quicker than the bigger guys, and he was trapped between weights. So I mean it was inevitable. At least he made good fights. So.
Assuming then, Ozzy, that you're not at the sort of level, say, of a Bob Arum, then where would you go?
Well, I was going to say that it helped Conlon that he's got the shoot. He's Irish and he's got a big following, so he could not take a gamble, but he could go to America. Now, if you are just say coming at the ABAs or something like that, it's a difficult one really. Sky have obviously got the platform at the moment. However, I don't like the way Hearn matches his younger opponents. I think he builds records. Compared to Frank, I do like the way he brings his prospects through. He'll happily put them in. Boy Jones Jr. for an example, Sammy McNess as well. He'll back them to win. Now, what I would say is that I don't think it harms yourself going with someone like a Steve Goodwin or a Steve Wood. You can go and get an apprenticeship on the smaller halls. It's not all singing and dancing if you were the big promoter, but you only get out, twice a year due to, like the competition for slots. If you go with a Steve Wood, a Steve Goodwin, in your first year you can potentially box 5 times, 6 times even as well. So, and I think that's massively underrated these days, that if you can go and get different styles and things like that. Look at Zelfa Barrett. He went with his uncle, Pat Barrett and Black Crash Promotions, and he's took on different styles, and while he's being moved on slow, he then went to Frank when not many had heard of him, I think it's fair to say, and now he's he's got the momentum behind him, and it's because he had those fights. I think unless you are a real red hot talent, it's sometimes hard to get noticed when you do sign with one of the bigger promoters. So it all depends on ability, talent, etc., things like that. If I had to pick one, and it had to be one of the bigger guys, I'd probably at the moment go with BT. I think they've got the stable they've got is very, very good. They've got a lot of young fighters, and I think it's a good opportunity to be with them at the moment. Whereas Sky, there's a lot of pressure on you to flog loads of tickets, pay-per-view, etc. So if I had to pick one, it'd be BT. But for ones that aren't top people, then I don't think you can be wrong looking at like a Goodwin, a Steffi Bull, a Steve Wood, someone like that.
Steve, I think that if you're like a headliner, like an Olympian, you end up going with Hearn and you get some of the bullshit matches that we've become accustomed to seeing. But if you're going a little bit under the radar, who was that fella who knocked someone out at featherweight last week? I think he's been campaigned all right. What was his name? Bellotti. I just think comparing BT to Sky at the moment, or Eddie to Frank, I think the difference is that Eddie's got the relationships with other promoters up and down the country, like the Steffi Bulls, where he can bring an English or a British fighter in. We saw it last week as well for Buatsi, for example, that have a little bit more meaning when they're from these shores. Whereas if you're with Frank and you're Anthony Yard, or now you're Zelfa Barrett, you're having to go and get these European idiots that no one's ever heard of. And I think that's the difference there. I think Eddie's got, for a young fighter that's not got all the hype and bullshit, that's a notch below, like Ted Cheeseman, for example, he's got the contacts where he can bring either someone already known to British shores, i.e. Carson Jones, or get someone who's English and might be a little bit known on the circuit at a lower level. So I think there's more options with Mr. Hearn at the moment.
Well said, Smido. We shall move on to the fight over the weekend. Just before we do so, if you're listening live on YouTube tonight or listening to the podcast on iTunes, go over and give the little thumbs up underneath the YouTube video. Hit the little thumbs up. Tell YouTube that you like listening to us. Why not? No shame in that, he says. Anyway, let's look at a legend from years gone by. We're going to ask everybody now for their favourite Roy Jones Jr. moment, because Andy, the great man himself, appears to have finally retired at nearly 50 years of age. He won a unanimous decision against Scott Sigman, the very one over in Pensacola, Florida, the home for so many of Roy Jones Jr.'s greatest moments. Scores of 98, 92 across the board. He picked up the vacant World Boxing Union German version cruiserweight title. If you want to talk about the fight, Andy, feel free. I haven't actually seen it, but if you don't, give us your favourite Roy Jones Jr. moment. And I'm going to say that Sean Bullock on the Facebook page said, everything before 2006. It's hard to argue, Andy. There were some great moments.
Yep. I didn't see the fight. I'm just glad that he's called it a day. I've seen obviously the kind of compliment. You used to get these kind of short videos now on Twitter, and I've obviously seen some of them, and that's about as much as I've seen of the fight. Obviously, he's even at that age and against like probably a club level fighter, he's obviously still going to have a wee bit too much about him. But talking about best moment, he says up to 2006.
No. Best moment of any time. I said Sean Bullock said anything before 2006 was brilliant. That's when 2006 came in.
No worries. I would probably need to go when he was coming through the ranks and stuff. I mean, he wasn't a great fighter or anything like that, but the knockout with Art Serrano, that really kind of cemented himself. I mean, obviously Jones was coming at the amateurs and that, he was quick fisted. He had the power and stuff like that, but it was the manner of that right hand as to how he knocked him out. If you look at the actual punch, the guy actually he took the shot, and rather than just go backwards, he actually went to his side. Like Del Boy did going through the fucking bar. Yeah. Well, this is how this guy got knocked out. But his right leg, you could just see at the knee almost twisted and broke as he went down. And I think even Roy Jones even said to this day it's probably his most brutal knockout he's ever landed, or it was like the best punch ever landed in that. So I'm going to go with that one. Art Serrano, 1992, first round knockout, evil.
Brilliant. Bit of niche information from Andy there. I did see a little clip going around on Twitter of Roy looking at the crowd and just poking his tongue out while Mr. Sigmund tried to get the hands up, and without even looking, vintage Roy threw a little jab right through the guard and bashed him off the nose. Smido's unsheathed himself. Just before you do, Smido, Darren Craig on the Facebook page says the Montel Griffin rematch was brutal. Roy was pissed after the calamity of the first fight, where of course he'd been disqualified. His post-fight interview with Larry Merchant was gold too. Come on, Smid.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that one. It was a bit before my time, Roy Jones, and on this podcast, I have been critical of him for a couple of reasons. The first one being the drugs issue, and the second one being going on for too long. But I think I need to revise my opinion. I think I've probably been too harsh, given that I've developed the opinion since then that basically I think everyone's on the drugs anyway. So rather than me picking out Roy Jones and saying, it's I don't believe what I see kind of thing, maybe I need to just level that out. obviously his record, I can't really speak on in-ring performances that much, but his record speaks for itself, obviously winning titles in all them different weights. The one that I mostly remember, and I saw this one first hand and live, was when Antonio Tarver said to him, "Any excuses tonight, Roy?" and then went on to knock him out within 2 rounds. That was something that always stands out.
Hey, not those kind of questions.
Yeah, I thought that was excellent. I mean, to be fair, he gave Kawasaki, and I was into the game by then. He gave Kawasaki a decent enough fight. Obviously, we know the result of that one, but yeah, obviously he's just gone on for far too long. Courtney Fry, I actually remember watching that one live. That was when I was a hardcore, to be honest.
In Latvia, wasn't it, Smith?
Yeah, imagine watching for the World Boxing Union German version cruiserweight title. Courtney Fry, watched that one live. That, like I say, that was in my hardcore days. And then Enzo, we had Enzo on before that fight. I remember that one vividly. And Andy was giving Enzo a pep talk in terms of throw that right hand, and he did so. And next thing you know, he was on the floor. I'll leave the Americans to go into his heyday. Let's put it that way.
Well, before they do, Andy, I believe you have something to say.
It was just about the drug issue and stuff. I think that the whole situation was fucked, and I think it's just further proof that there's states in America just really shouldn't be hosting boxing, because it was Indiana or something like that. They didn't have any law and drug testing. Probably like the majority of states in the US didn't have it at the time and stuff. And I think was it Richard Hall? I think the two of them actually tested positive during that fight, and I think the stuff that Jones got done for, but it's an over-counter stuff, actually had an anabolic steroid in it, So I think the whole it was anabolic steroid.
Yeah, no. It was, honestly, I mean, as far as I understand it anyways, it was ripped fuel.
Yeah, but it was an anabolic steroid apparently, or had something along those lines.
Counter and was sold in every single general nutrition center in America. And I remember, I mean, I wasn't in well, I was in high school, but secondary school or whatever at that particular time. But I remember being around older guys, I think I was about 10 or 11. And if you went, in an older guy's room, every guy had ripped fuel in his, in his room or whatever. And people were taking that or whatever because they wanted to put on some muscle. I mean, that wasn't anything that was outrageous or whatever. And yeah, it did have certain components in there that were, basically metabolites of banned substances. But I mean, it's not like he did nandrolone or something like that. I mean, it wasn't hardcore steroids. He was doing something that was legal to the consumer market and ultimately had some banned substances in it or whatever. And yes, of course, you as an athlete, you should always know what you're putting in your body. You shouldn't be taking stuff. But Indiana didn't have that drug testing, like you were saying. Man, I don't think that people can really detract from Roy Jones's career by saying that he was some sort of steroid freak or something. I mean, he had freakish talent. Of course, he was in the Olympics. He was tested then. I mean, his legacy, I think, is being one of the greatest athletes, probably whoever participated in the sport. He had talent that nobody could teach. And all of the things that Roy Jones did would be the sorts of things that trainers would tell their fighters, don't ever emulate this. You can't
bring up the 1988 games as about drug testing. The whole fucking pack was absolutely juiced to the gills. Even Victor Conte says that every result for like 1988 backwards could brutally just be written off as done by cheats.
Yeah, I know somebody who's actually competing for the Olympics right now. She didn't confess to me that she was actually, doing performance-enhancing drugs. But when I said to her, I said, do you think that everybody who's in the top levels of this particular Olympic event, it's a Summer Olympic event, I said, do you think that people are all doing the juice? And she goes, yes, absolutely, every single one of them. I didn't go to the second step and say, do you? But I mean, she goes, yeah. She goes, everybody's doing it. It's just that they know how to get around the testers. Yeah, I mean, it's I don't think that's okay. But I you're absolutely right, Andy. I think everybody's done it. I think Floyd's done it. I think Pacquiao's done it. I'm sure Roy probably did it. I know Tyson certainly did it when he got out of jail because his muscles had all atrophied because he didn't have a proper diet and he didn't have the ability to lift as much as he probably otherwise should have. I mean, yeah, they've all done it. But Roy is hardly the worst offender in the last 30 years.
Donnie, whenever you were in high school, were you like a buff white dude?
No, I was never buff, unfortunately. Yeah, I wish I could say yes, but no, I was not.
Okay, Matti DiGialinardo, former pod host, put up a little GIF on our Facebook page of Roy Jones with the hands behind the back, knocking out Glenn Kelly, the Australian. That was one of my favourites as well. Love that one, Donnie. Come on then, Don. What's your favourite moment? Is it Anthony Hamshaw, Prince Badia Jarman?
My favorite moment, really, from Roy Jones was when I think it was the second or the third round of the Tony fight, when Tony started baiting him in and holding his arms out.
Oh yeah.
And then Roy Jones did the same thing back to him, and they're going back and forth. And actually, nobody really likes to talk about this about Roy Jones because everybody likes him. But he used to, when it was still legal, engage in cockfighting, and so he used to have a whole set of roosters in his Pensacola, Florida, property, and he used to fight them competitively. And nobody talks about that anymore, but it's true. And anyway,
You ever been into cockfighting, Donny?
No, not except with my cock, but essentially he said he's like, it reminded me, and Roy Jones said, he goes, Tony's things reminded me of when a rooster puts his feathers out to look as if he's big so as to intimidate his opponent. And Roy just said, I'm going to do that right back. And then when Tony did it back to him, he goes, that's when I hit him with that leaping right hook, and when he put him down. And to me, that's probably the best win of Roy Jones's career, because he got a prime Tony, and he took him to school. And in retrospect, I mean, Tony is probably one of the greatest boxing talents that's ever lived. I mean, he may have underachieved because he liked food too much, and he didn't always take care of himself outside the ring. But I mean, he got Tony in his prime, and he destroyed him. And I mean, to me, that'll always be the lasting signature achievement of Roy Jones, is that he got a young Tony, and he showed that Tony wasn't even in his class, and Tony is a tremendous fighter.
Certainly is. Hate to be the pedant. Was it a left hook or a right hook he caught Tony with? I thought it was a left hook, but
left
Donny
hook.
says right. Wait, it was a left hook, yeah.
Left hook.
Yeah, I thought it was a left hook as well. Daryl Jelly says the first fight I saw Roy Jones Jr. in was against Reggie Johnson, which was a masterclass. My personal favourite fight was against James Toney. Jones was special, in my opinion, the top three boxers of the 1990s. I really hope this is his last fight. If it is his last fight, Rob, he'll have gone over about 70 contests now. I was saying to Donny, there's a fair few you could pick out, some not so notable ones toward the end, but let's just focus on the prime years. What took your fancy, Rob?
Well, I kind of got to know Jones when I was 10, when the Olympics in '88 was on, because Billy Welch was from my town and he was fighting in the Olympics, and he got jobbed by a Korean as well. So you're watching the footage and you see this guy and he's bringing off combinations on people, and you're just like, he's going to be something. So then in his pro career, man, like, what couldn't he do in his prime? People harp on about his fundamentals, but the thing was, like, he had got good fundamentals. If you look at him in the Olympic semi-final against Richie Woodhall, it's left hook, right hand all the way through, walks him down. So he knew what he was doing, and he had boxing smarts too, but he was just so athletic and gifted and fast. He was able to pull off stuff that was, like, mind-boggling in the ring. Like, he was like a computer game or something almost. You know what I mean? He was too talented for the guys he was fighting. But as far as memories, the body shot of Virgil Hill is a cracker. The second Griffith fight, which is unbelievable, and it's great. I was just thinking during the week, because I was watching a lot of Roy's fights, obviously with him in mind that his career was finishing, because he's one of my favorite fighters ever. Like, and I was watching a lot of his fights, and it's good to be in the YouTube era where you can hear the HBO commentary, because for years before the internet and all that, like, you're waiting for DVD copies, or there's no way of getting your hands on the fights with the US commentary on them. But there's a funny moment in Griffith too, where it only goes on like for 2.5 minutes, but George Foreman is doing his typical going against the favourites. So everybody's like, Jones is hurting him, Jones is getting to him, and he was like, he's fainting. Jones is fainting, and Griffith is benefiting from it, and then he just whacked him with a left hook and nearly put him through the ropes, like, and flattened him, didn't he? Like, so, that was brilliant. I love the Ruiz fight too, just for the way that he was getting to Norman Stone as well in the ring. Like, Ruiz didn't really know what to do with him, but, like, that's no mean feat. Ruiz is just after beating Holyfield twice, like, you know what I mean? So to move up, put on the 25 pounds of muscle and go up and beat win a version of the heavyweight title, but win it that easily, What is it, 10 rounds to 2 or something? Even if you give Ruiz around, it's hard to give him. He just fought the perfect fight, like, and those moments are hard to take. I think we knew after the Glenn Johnson, after he couldn't beat Tarver in the rematch, and after the Glenn Johnson knockout, it was over from there for me. I think he should have retired, as I said before, after the Ruiz fight. But I was just saying in the chat during the week, at that point, that would have been his 49th fight. He would have only had the Griffin disqualification as a loss on his record. If he'd have retired then, there's a genuine argument that he could say he's the best ever, like, where people of our era might say he was the best ever.
Can someone can someone paint the Ruiz picture to me? So Roy's gone up. Who was about at heavyweight at the time, and was that his only fight at heavyweight?
Yeah, he tried to get a Tyson fight, and then when the Tyson fight didn't come off, he had to get himself back down to light heavy because Tarver was calling him out to. Cause I think he was #1 contender at the time.
Oh, so he wasn't just going up to heavyweight, cherry picking someone's shit, and then fucking off.
No, it wasn't so much that, because when they went up to fight Ruiz, you know, people didn't expect them. People might expect him to win, but they didn't expect him to win in that fashion and how he done it. I mean, he was mesmerising.
Donny, sorry to interrupt you. We have a caller on the line, so we're going to come back to this discussion very shortly because we've got former British and WBO champion Michael Jennings on the line. How are you this evening, Mike?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Good.
Excellent stuff. We're just talking a bit of Roy Jones Jr. Hopefully he's retired after the weekend. Were you a fan? Any favourite Roy Jones moments?
Yeah, he was brilliant, wasn't he? I think most boxers that have ever heard or seen anything of him are going to be a fan of him. Do a bit of anything, you know. He was fancy, but he could back it up. He had punch power, speed, and he could box and fight. He was a top fighter.
He certainly was a top fighter. Just bringing things a little closer to home, we spoke to British cruiserweight champion Matty Askin on last week's show. You, of course, train Matty. How pleased are you with Matty's performances and progress at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we're pleased with Matty's come on, because obviously before he came to us, he was on the verge of retiring. So, you know, no one gave him a cat and else chance to do anything, and, you know, to do what he's done, to go on and win the British title and then hopefully defend it against Stephen Simmons on 17th of March. I think he's come on a ton.
You obviously fought for the British title yourself during your career, winning it against Chris Saunders. Yeah. I remember you fighting the likes of Jimmy Vincent, Bradley Price. What does it mean to fight and defend that belt?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, when I was fighting it, I didn't look at each. I just looked at each fight. I just wanted to win each fight. There weren't a belt that I wanted to actually win, but obviously when I got the belt in my hand, you could see, you know, it's a prestigious belt and one that most British boxers do want to hold and own at some point. So yeah, I was made up. Something for the kids to be proud of, really.
And obviously you went on as well for your most famous fight, probably February 2009. You challenged Miguel Cotto for the vacant WBO welterweight title. It was on HBO pay-per-view. There was 10,000 packed inside the Garden. Cotto was on point that night, Michael, you know, especially to the body. What do you remember about that fight?
Yeah, I remember all the fight. Obviously, I think I boxed the wrong fight. You know, we had the game plan all wrong. And sometimes when you work on your back foot trying to get away from the puncher's power sort of thing, it can work against you, because, you know, it gives them more leverage, and I think that's what I did. I think if I'd have got up close, I think I would have had a better chance against Cotto. But to be fair, you know, the level that I boxed beforehand, and when you get in with someone like Cotto, you realise, you know, what makes him so good and so special.
What exactly were those things? Was it the speed, the power, the way he cut the ring off?
Yeah, it was his timing and his accuracy, to be honest with you. Speed and power, you know, probably could have dealt with, but it was his accuracy and timing. It's like when he hit me with the body shot, he hit me with a left hook to the body, and I went down and took an 8 count on one knee. While I was down there, I was thinking, there's no chance he's going to hit me again with that same shot, and he did, you know, with precision sort of thing, within a pinpoint. He caught me again with the same shot, and he's more or less the exact same place. And it's things like that, what, you know, it's hard to explain, but it's that what makes them stand out to be top fighters.
Just remind our listeners, we have Michael Jennings on the call, top former professional, now a trainer. We're going to ask some of the panel members in a minute if they want to come in and ask any questions. Just before we do so, what was the atmosphere like in there that night with all those Puerto Ricans baying for your blood?
Again, it's like, it was hostile, but I don't remember it being hostile. It's like a big thing for me when I was fighting, it was my ring entrance music, and it always got me up for it sort of thing. So no matter where I was or who I was up against, it didn't matter at that time. But when I have watched it back, and, you know, it was very hostile. My missus just said then she remembers it being very hostile as well, but I don't actually remember it being like that.
And your final fight was obviously in September 2010 against a 21-0 fighter for the British title, Kell Brook. What was it like to fight Kell? What did he do so well?
To be fair, I thought I was coming, but I thought he won the first 2, and I thought I won the next 3. I was getting into that fight. I could hear, obviously through with experience, I could hear Kell, you know, how he was breathing a lot more heavier and stuff like that, and he can't move an elbow. What got, you know, the referee judged it as a punch, and if that's what he said, it was a punch, and it was a cut. What caught me, but apart from that, at that time, he wasn't the fighter that he is now. You know, because every credit to him, he's gone on and he's done really, really well. He's, you know, fair play to him. He's a top class fighter. But at the time when I boxed him, it was my level sort of thing at that time. So, you know, it was just one of them things. I've been in with harder punchers. He had good variety. That's one thing that he did have. He picked his shots well, and there was a lot of variety in body head shots, which made the harder shots more a surprise. What probably hurt you more?
Who would be some of the more harder punchers you went in with over your career?
Believe it or not, I got it once off Paul Denson, the journeyman. I don't even remember
him. Yes, I do, yes.
One in Obinobs, he could punch. And his brother as well, Mark Ramsey. These sort of journeymen, they don't exist anymore, I don't think. These were proper journeymen at the time, and they give anyone problems. They could actually punch, and I tell you, he could punch a little bit as well. Bradley Price, he could punch. Yeah, he could punch. He was quite strong. But obviously, the best fighter I've been in with by country mile, power, speed, accuracy, timing was Cotto. Everything that he had just stood out compared to everyone else.
I remember talking to DeMarcus Corley a few years ago, and he said the thing was about Cotto as well was he was very sneaky with the head and the elbows away from the referee. Did you get any of that?
Yeah, definitely he was. He was good at all that sort of thing, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, it's all part and parcel of boxing, you know. We teach that sort of thing because if you can get away with it, fair play, because Cotto got away with a lot. I mean, I remember the referee just before the fight warning Cotto no knees, not to use his knees, because he was known for kneeing on the inside.
Yeah.
You know, which is something what you wouldn't expect in boxing, but, you know, you do get it. You get knees, you get elbows, you get shoulders, heads. You get arms locked up and, you know, pushed against your elbows and stuff like that. All these little dirty moves, what no one expects happens in boxing, but because he covered it up well, you know, people do it and get away with it.
Yeah, as a professional fighter, just getting your point of view on this, you prepare diligently, obviously, for a fight, and you think you know what to expect from an opponent. What happens when the guy comes in and he's, say, a lot faster of hand than you thought he was going to be, or he punches a lot harder than you thought he would? How do you mentally adapt to that?
To be fair, I mean, when you look at my record, a lot of the kids that I boxed on my way up, they was journeymen, if I'm being honest with you. And, you know, most of my fights that I did actually win. I won by miles. You know, they weren't really that close. I'll tell you who did surprise me more than anyone, and I think it was probably my own doing, like you said about the training, the diligent training and all the rest of it. I think I overtrained, is when I boxed, what's he called, Young Mutley?
Young Mutley, yeah.
Yeah, he surprised me, but again, I think it was more my own. I overtrained in that fight, and from the first round, I just felt completely drained. But yeah, he was good. He was slippery. He was not bad counter punching, and do you know what? He could punch as well. He was quite strong.
Yeah, he was a good fighter.
So,
a good fighter back in the day. I remember he was on ITV, that one, I think.
Yeah, I think it was. It was in Nottingham, I think it was, the Ice Arena or something like that. But yeah, Mutley was a good fighter, and I remember watching him before that. You know, before I even knew I was fighting him, I thought, yeah, he's a decent kid, and he was, to be fair.
Do any of our guys want to jump in? Ozzy, one of our contributors, I'm sure you've got a question for Michael.
Yeah, Mike. Just tell us a little bit. Obviously, you hung the gloves up and you've gone into training now. Tell us a bit about the fighters that you look after, and obviously I'll give one away, but you've got Jack Arnfield going into a huge fight next week. How's the preparation gone for that?
Well, it's funny you said that, because it was yesterday I was speaking to our Dave, my brother who helps us to train, and we were saying Jack's Jack's the best. While he's been at our gym, this is the best that I've seen him. And I'm not just saying that because it's this camp or anything. I'll tell you the truth. I mean, last time he boxed Jones, and he had a terrible fight, and to get up for the fight. And I think he was a bit stale in the gym and stuff like that, but this is definitely the best I've seen Jack Arnfield, and well, it's the best that he's been, sort of thing, and he's improved so much. So yeah, I'm made up with Jack at the minute. You know, I think we've got a good chance.
Any more questions, Ozzy?
And what other lads? Yeah, I was going to say, what other lads have you got as well aside from Matty Askin?
Say that again. What other lads have we got besides Matty Askin?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously we've got Jack Armfield, who's obviously fighting for the British title. We've got Matty Askin, who's British champion. He'll be defending his British title on the 17th of March. And we've got Scott Fitzgerald, Commonwealth gold medalist as an amateur. He's had 9-1-9, stopped 7 fights with Eddie Hearn. He's fighting on Sunday, the 25th of February in Manchester on the Next Generation show. And then he's looking, well, I think he's out again in April on the Khan show, fighting for a title. We're not too sure on what title that is yet, but he's fighting for his first title on that. And then we've got Adam Little from another Blackpool kid, who I think, Adam's been overlooked. He got beat off Glenn Foot, but I'd love for Adam to get that fight again at some point, just to show how much he's improved. He's only had one fight with us, and that was on the WBS series. It was in Liverpool, and he won an unbeaten kid, Reese Macmillan, I think he was called. He stopped him in the 4th round. So I've got high hopes for him. I think he could do well. And then we've got Mark Jeffers, who's just turned 20 actually yesterday. He's 6-0, middleweight, but he's still growing. Mark, he's going to probably end up super middle, maybe light heavy. He's big. He's going to be a big lad. We've got high hopes for Mark as well. I think he's, once his strength develops as a man, I think he'll be a force to be reckoned with.
And just finally from me, obviously, when you decided to go into the pro game, could you imagine it have gone any better for you? Obviously, when you first took over, it was you had to get the fighters in, but since then, it's only gone up for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, when we first opened, what happened when I got into training? My brother was doing a white collar, an unlicensed boxing show, and I said I'd help him to train. So I'd done a bit of training with him, and then a couple more of his mates wanted some training, so I started doing bits with them, and then I got talked to my brother, and we decided to open an amateur boxing gym. So we opened a gym, got the gym affiliated, and was going down the amateur route at first. And what we want to do is obviously get the kids from being youngsters and train them all the way up to seniors, and then hopefully turn them over to professionals as well. So, it's like a convert, not really from amateurs to pro. But I bumped into Matty Askin one day and just asked him what he was up to, and he was saying he's not really doing anything, not training or anything anymore. He's packing up. And I told him that I'd got a gym, and asked him if he wanted to come down, and he did come down, and Matty was our first pro, and it's just snowball effect from there, really. So we're doing pretty well, and the best thing about it is we're doing well with lads what have been written off, which is what I'm happy about, because it just goes to show that we must be doing something right, because these lads was on the verge of retiring before, like Jack Armfield, he was on the verge of retiring. Most of the fights that he's been in while he's been with us, he's been a massive underdog and come out the winner. So, I think it just shows that we must be doing something right.
Certainly are. Thanks for the questions, Ozzy. Just a couple more questions, Michael. We do appreciate your time this Sunday evening. We've had Jimmy Lee has been on the Twitter page asking us a question. He said, ask Michael, how hard was it to hang up the gloves after so many years boxing professionally?
Yeah, I didn't hang up the gloves through it's not a decision that I wanted to do. I had to do it because my shoulders went knackered. If my shoulders were still working, I would never have retired when I did. So that was the hardest part about it, because it weren't my own decision. So yeah, it was horrible, because from being 13 up into being 32 or 33, I had more or less a similar sort of routine. It was just boxing day in, day out for me from being a kid. So when I did actually pack up, there was a massive gap, big void there, and you don't know what to do with yourself. You get, there's times when you're down and stuff like that, but you just got to try and get on and, just get through it. There's other things as well out there.
Second question from Jimmy. He said, how are you enjoying training Chorley CC on Saturday mornings?
Yeah, to be fair, it's my brother who does a cricket team. But yeah, and I did come up actually and train them last week with Matty Askin, and they all got stuck in. Fair play to the lads. yeah, they all got stuck in. If it's going to help them to win more games, then, you know, we're willing to help them, definitely.
And just final question from me. Just tell the listeners, don't forget to follow you over on Twitter at Mike Jennings01. Tell us about your trainer back in the day, Michael, a guy called Brian Hughes. Some of our younger listeners might not be aware of Brian and his work, but he was a master of the boxing game.
Yeah, Brian was good. Brian was good at getting things across to you. That was Brian's best aspect. I think you know, the way that he couldn't actually show you physically some things, but the way he explained it, you know exactly what he meant, and that's what I want to be good at. You know, I think it's just breaking things down, and so anyone can understand what you're trying to tell them, whether they're advanced in boxing or whether it's a kid that just walked through the door. You know, and obviously the easier it is for you to pick up, the easier it is you're going to get it, sort of thing, and that's what Brian was good at, and making you calm and all that, his stories and everything. It's hard to explain, really. Brian was really good. He was a good man and a good trainer.
And not giving the lads too many instructions all in one go, which sometimes you do hear in between rounds, don't you?
Yeah, it's silly. I mean, we get a lot of experience because obviously we're doing it with the amateurs and the pros, so we're in the corners quite a lot, do you know what I mean? And I think you just stick to your basics. Like, when Matt is fighting and Jack and all that, 9 times out of the 10, with the fight that they're having, we go over it a million times in the gym anyway, so they know what we want them to do. So basically, like, it's like with Jack next week, we might be saying to him, you know, just imagine you're back in them circles in the gym. He'll know exactly what I mean by that. And then once I've finished telling him my instructions, I'll ask him what I mean, and just to make sure that he has picked it up and understood it.
Brilliant stuff, Michael. We really appreciate you coming on this evening. Thanks for giving us your time.
No worries. Cheers for having us.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Mike.
Same, mate. See you later, pal. See ya.
Michael Jennings there, current trainer, former professional at Mike Jennings01 on Twitter. Great to have him on. Just before we got Mike on the call, Donny, we're talking Roy Jones Jr. I cut you off in your prime. Won't happen again, Donny. Sorry.
I was going to ask a question, and that would open up to the entire panel. You know,
Donny, we're losing you. You've gone really robotic there.
Wait. Me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Yep, go ahead.
He was a good fighter. He seems to have some good prospects, and so, you know, he's a good trainer. But I was wondering, why is it exactly, do you think, that some of the top trainers were not, you know, amazing Hall of Fame level fighters themselves? In other words, Floyd Mayweather Sr., Freddie Roach, Robert Garcia, Enzo Calzaghe, of course, never boxed, nor did Angelo Dundee. But if, Eddie Futch wasn't a great fighter. But I mean, if you look at all these, I mean, in other words, you would think that it would be the guys who were Hall of Fame level fighters who would have all of the tips and the tricks to pass on to the next generation of fighters. But really, the guys that are the great trainers weren't always great at it themselves. It seems as if the people that weren't as great are the best teachers.
Well, I don't know if this is the only reason. Obviously, it's not. But I remember talking to Dave Boy McCauley a few years ago, obviously an ex-world champion from over here. And he said that he didn't go into coaching because he tried it out. And the sheer frustration because the lads weren't able to do the same things that he used to be able to do in the gym and in the ring, you know, they weren't able to do it to the same sort of level. It was just too frustrating. And he couldn't get the messages across. So that's possibly definitely one reason, but it's a good point, Don. It's the same with football managers or soccer managers, I suppose, as you would say. Of sometimes the great players weren't the ones who came through, and you even have guys now managing who didn't even play the game at all. So it's a bit of an anomaly, I suppose, Donny. Hopefully that is an acceptable answer for you. Joining us on the call now, we have guest number 3. He's a writer over at Boxing Scene and also at Boxing News, feature writer Terry Dooley's on the call. How are you, Terry?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good, actually. We brought you on for a reason. A couple of guys have been asking to get Terry on because they noticed you responded recently to a well-known, infamous Twitter personality called Michael Benson. He seems to be winding quite a few people up. As someone who's in the trade at the moment, like yourself, what is it that Michael Benson's doing that's so right or so wrong?
Benson out.
I think the people who enjoy him think that he's doing some kind of aggregated news feed whereby he puts all the boxing information in one place. But the problem is that he's taking the information and not accrediting it properly with links and references back to the original article. It was brought to my attention on the Checkhook boxing forum because I don't follow the guy and I muted him because I have no interest in what he has to say. So I saw Chris Williamson talking about it, and a few people I do understand the point they made in that if someone does a news article, as I did with Amir Khan, I did a thing with not with Amir, but I found out he was going to sign for Matchroom a couple of weeks ago. I got two good sources who basically told me it was bang on and gave me the information. And then obviously when you release a news article, in the past, Eastside Boxing used to have posters who'd steal your information and put it on their forum thread. And Michael seems to be doing a similar thing. And I believe that he put out a statement recently that, again, I saw on Check-Up Boxing, where he said he realises that it's not the done thing to do, and that he's going to start accrediting people and seeing where he gets the information from. But then I think he later backtracked and said he's not going to do it all the time. I just don't see the point of it. If you're going to do that in terms of tweeting, maybe it'll get you a reputation of someone who people are going to follow your Twitter account. But I just don't see the upside of what he does. I know that he writes some original articles. From what I've seen on the TalkSport website, which I must confess I visited once for about 5 seconds, and saw that he does some opinion pieces. But if you're going to do opinion pieces based on the fact that you just basically tweet other people's little bits of news bits without giving a link to them, then I don't see why people should respect that opinion that you're going to give. There might be an upside to it for Michael. I'm not sure what the actual situation is, but for me, just taking bits of news and maybe making a little tweet about it and saying this is what's going on, but not actually giving a link to it and not actually giving a link to the person who created the news and just doing it for your personal gratification, I don't know what the point is. Some people make videotapes of other men having sex with their wives and then watch it, and it seems to me that's kind of a similar thing. It just doesn't make any sense to me, but that's just what some people do. So if Michael's going to start attributing people, then great. But I had an argument with him the other night where he said boxing scene does the same thing. But boxing scene, we actually attribute any articles that we use quotes from. And boxing scene is a recognised boxing website where we have original news articles. We have opinion pieces. I did one today about depression and concussion in boxing. I've done articles with James Toney and various people. So I just don't see the upside to what Michael's doing. But I can understand as well why some people find it really annoying, Chris in particular, on Check Up Boxing.
We've spoken before about opinion pieces, Terry. Just to go over your point of view, you're a big believer that you have to really have a lot of credibility in the bank before you write an opinion piece. Tell us why.
I used to talk to Glyn Leach a lot. Me and Glyn both didn't like people who did opinion pieces, people who've never done too many. You basically have to do quite a few opinion interviews and fight reports so that you actually build up an opinion about the sport itself. And then you can actually do an opinion piece saying this is what I think about X, Y, and Z, otherwise known as editorials. Glyn used to send me links to articles saying, why the fuck is this person writing an opinion piece when I don't even know who this person is and I don't care what their opinion is? And I share that same kind of viewpoint. Glyn and myself as well didn't believe in boxing historians in the age of the internet and botch wrecks. Historians are just basically people with a self-inflated sense of their own worth, talking about fights of a bygone age that a lot of the time they can bring the information through from the internet. So I just find with opinion pieces, you've got to earn a right to have an opinion. In order to earn that right, you've got to write decent articles. And I just think a lot of people now, in terms of boxing scene, we have people who send us an email saying this is my opinion on a particular fight. I've never written an article before in my life and I've never interviewed a fighter. So will you publish this opinion piece? And by the way, the next time I do one, I want you to pay me for it. And I just always say, look, no one knows you from Adam. No one cares what you've got to say. Go out and interview people. Go out and go to fights and do some fight coverage. Do that for the year and build a name for yourself. And then you can actually come out and say, this is who I am. You know me from my articles and the people I've interviewed and the fight reports I've done. Therefore, I'm going to give you an opinion about something and it might actually be worthwhile reading. But apart from that, I just don't see the point of them. I just think it's just a lazy way for people to try and get the name out there on the internet and get bylines.
Terry, stay on the line because I want to get your views on a couple of other things. Just before we do so, we've got the head of the Boxing Asylum technical department on the call, Ben Farouki's jumped on. Ben, what is it you want to say about this subject?
Basically, obviously I run my own boxing website and I've worked in digital marketing for 10 years. So the way I look at what Michael's doing, I'll sort of give you a sort of primer of what I think is going on. So he's, and like Terry said, he's a news aggregator. So a news aggregator is websites like News Now, apps like Flipboard, which you might have seen if you've got an Android phone. It used to be pre-built into the Android phones. Feedly, which is another app, or Dig was a big website. So they aggregate news from all sorts of areas. And that's what Michael Benson is doing. He's pulling in news from everywhere, from BBC, from IFL, from anybody who's reporting about boxing, and he's tweeting it out. But the problem is he's not linking to anybody, or he wasn't. So why does this matter to people like myself or to Terry or to Chris? It matters because sites like mine, or even Boxing Scene, or even people like IFL, who are a video channel, they're independent. We are reliant on the income from adverts. So IFL are reliant on the adverts that play on the YouTube videos when you watch them. I'm reliant on traffic from Google and from the Google ads that are on my site. Similarly with other sites like Irish Boxing and Asian Boxing, Scott Graveson, who runs that, he gets the money from the adverts that are on those sites. So we need that to live, to keep our sites going. So how do we get we need people to go to our sites. We need the traffic. So what Michael Benson is essentially doing is he's stealing the traffic from all of us by not linking to us. So if Terry, like he said, he'd written this article today, which was an opinion piece, for Boxing Scene to get money from that, people have to go to Boxing Scene and read it. So they're reliant on that traffic. If I was going to share that now, I'd retweet it. I wouldn't, take something out of it and not credit Terry, because then I'm stealing from Terry essentially. So what Michael works for TalkSport, like Terry mentioned. He gets paid full time to do what he's doing. So he might write a few opinion pieces. But what it seems to me is that TalkSport are almost building Michael's account as a news aggregator. So he becomes what's called an influencer. What is an influencer? An influencer is someone who people in a niche like boxing look to. So fans look at Michael now and think, oh, well, Michael said it must be true. Similarly, people like Coogan have become influencers because they've become so big and they influence a lot of people in their industry. So it looks like what TalkSport are trying to do is almost build Michael Benson as a influencer, if they are actually letting him do this in his work time, which it seems like they do, because he seems to be doing it, 9 to 5 sort of thing. It's not like he just does it on an evening. He seems to be updating this almost every day throughout the day. So it looks like TalkSport are building him into an influencer. Why? Maybe because, like Terry says, he's never been on the TalkSport website to read any boxing stuff. I certainly haven't. I might have been there once to look at something, and that's about it. So they probably want to drive traffic to themselves, create an influencer. So that means that when Terry does an article, or when Chris does, or when I do, like Terry said, he broke that. He had an Amir Khan thing. Now, I knew the Amir Khan news weeks before. I didn't break it for various reasons. I knew the Phil Greco stuff. I didn't write an article about it. I said it on here that I think he'll fight him. I knew the Phil Greco thing. If I'd have, excuse me, if I'd have broken that news, I would have got a lot of traffic to my website. So going forward now, Michael has said that he's not going to link to anybody because he doesn't think links are pretty. But like I mentioned, links and lack of links, lack of traffic causes us to lose money. He says he's going to at people. He's going to tag us in the posts. That's not acceptable. Tagging someone is not going to drive traffic, and no one's going to go any further than his tweet. If he tags Terry in an article, in a tweet, or he tags me in a tweet, no one's going to go to my Twitter account and then to my website. And Michael knows that full and well. So essentially, what Michael Benson and TalkSport, if they're paying him to do this, what they're doing is stealing from people who, as Ozzy has mentioned on many occasions, do this on their own back. I don't make a profit from what I do. I do it because I love boxing, and I work in digital marketing. I can build websites, and that's what I wanted to do because I love boxing. So Michael Benson is stealing from a lot of people here.
What we'll say at this juncture, if I know that Michael listens to the show, he used to listen to the show anyway. If he wants to come on for Right a Reply, either tonight or next week or the week after or whenever, then we'll welcome that. If Michael wants to come on and discuss it with the boys on the panel, then he's more than welcome. We'll give him a fair hearing. We're not going to shout him down and all that type of shit. So he is welcome. Go ahead, Donna.
I mean, all I'm going to just say is that I just agree with everything Ben just said. The guy has like 3,000 Twitter followers. I mean, who gives a fuck? I mean, he's nobody.
At the moment, Donna.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess it's maybe
he's becoming a beast.
like the journalism's profession, like the journalism profession's like Adolf Hitler. Like, you know, it's like, no, it's okay, we can control him. No, he's not that influential. And before you know it, he's a beast that is out of control. Yeah, all right. I guess you're trying to nip it in the bud, but
yeah, exactly. Right. Brief comment from Ozzy, and then we'll bring Terry in, and then we're going to get our next guest in. Go ahead, Ozzy.
I completely agree with everything said, and what you said there, Donny, about he's got 3,000 followers and he's a nobody at the moment. But say, for example, 3/4 of his followers see what he tweets. So, for example, he watches a Eddie Hearn IFL video, picks out all the key messages. So, Joe Bloggs is going to fight this guy. This show's happening then. I may think, well, I don't need to watch that video anymore. What's the point? I know what's coming because he's told me. And he just takes everything away from what all these people. I know IFL know it's a job.
If he get paid for it. Spending an hour of watching Eddie Hearn just basically spew a lot of like an hour's worth of fucking total bullshit.
No, I'm not saying. No, I'm saying you know, as an thing in the world. It's an example though, and like a lot of people, for example, then so say somebody goes out and does it off their own back, he just rips the content off, and it genuinely isn't fair. Now he works for a national organisation. They're owned by the Sky owner, so he should have no problems in picking up a telephone, ringing a PR office at Frank Warren, Matchroom, Cyclone, Steve Wood, Steve Goodwin, whoever, and sourcing the stories himself. He could set up a blog and run a lot of it, and then feed the more higher profile things to TalkSport. He doesn't do that.
Ozzy, with all due respect, I completely agree with you. I was just kind of, as you folks would say, I was taking a piss, but
no, yeah.
No. I mean, yeah. I mean, what he's doing is absolutely ridiculous, and I think if enough journalists keep talking about it, he'll ultimately be forced to become a legitimate journalist and to source articles himself and to create his own content rather than just leeching off of the work of others. No, I completely agree with you. I just
yeah. And
go ahead, Donna.
The thing is, though, like I say, he's attributed to TalkSport. Now, naturally, when the bigger shows come in, so Joshua Parker, for example, say they get 500 press passes submitted, all the smaller boxing websites will go to the back of the queue because TalkSport will submit, for example, 10 passes, and he'll be on one of them. So naturally, he'll get more priority over them, and he pinches content. The lad doesn't even go to shows as well, which says it all. Now, the one of the easiest things to go to in boxing, as much as we all like talk about it and we don't, it pisses us off and things like that. It's one of the best sports to get access to fighters to. Look, tonight we've had Mick Jennings on, ex-fighter trainer. We've had a young up-and-coming prospect on. We've had Andy Lee, Jason McClory, promoters, everybody. It's not difficult to do. And I don't understand why he just feels that what he does is acceptable. And like Ben said, just because you tag somebody in, that means that person then has to retweet something that somebody is tweeting about their own things. He should be there putting links out themselves. And what he has done, he replies to comments now. So that doesn't indirectly come up on his Twitter feed. Because it's a reply, it doesn't come up and, go out to all his followers. It just comes out to the tweet he's put out. And it's bang out of order. And that statement is just a load of bullshit. He's going to try and find a way because he doesn't like posting links because they're ugly. Who gives a shit if they're ugly? At the end of the day, don't go steal something from somebody at all. It's an absolute joke. And like I said, it's theft in a sense. Like you take followers, viewers, listeners, whatever away from websites, podcasts, etc. These things end up stopping. And when these things end up stopping, who do they have people to report on or see other stories, etc.? Things like that.
Yeah, we have more journalistic things to talk about later on in the show. Terry, let's park Benson to one side and get your point of view and a couple of other points of interest just before we move on and let you go. First of all, any interest in this MTK Global thing about sort of banning the reporters from the Republic of Ireland? Where do you stand on this?
I don't really think you should ban reporters from anywhere. I think you should let people go on and try and do the jobs. And the old MTK thing, I understand why people have got legitimate issues with the brand, but a lot of fighters have signed up to them. So just go and report the shows. I know years back, previous organisations and vice versa banned reporters from doing various things. So to me, it just seems like a bit of a storm in a teacup. I just quickly want to return back to the Michael Benson thing. I have nothing against the guy. I don't think he's a journalist. He's not even a journalist. If that's his type of thing, if that's what he wants to do, then I think he should crack on. But my thoughts on it in a nutshell: no one goes to TalkSport to get boxing knowledge. If people didn't have to commute, TalkSport probably wouldn't exist. And I just don't really see the upside to it. It just seems like a pointless exercise. But if I was ever completely and utterly on my arse in terms of content, I might follow the guy just to try and grab some stuff. But if you ain't for boxing scene and boxing news, then it's completely and utterly pointless. And hopefully he starts doing some more original stuff and actually attributing people and pipes down in terms of what he's saying about boxing scene, because boxing scene is a legitimate website where people can actually come and read articles that expand their boxing knowledge and give them further information and insight about the sport. And it's not just there as kind of throwaway information, basically.
Excellent insight as always, Terry. Just a brief word before you go. Next week, the big one, Groves versus Eubank Jr. Where's your money line?
Yeah, it's weird. When I watched Groves against Judenov, I favoured Eubank at that point, but Groves has got an habit of proving people wrong, and with him being a big guy as well. I always fancied Eubank from the moment that it kind of became apparent that the two of them may fight. But as fight week is coming close, I'm kind of leaning back towards Groves. Obviously, with Eubank making so many mistakes, people forget that Groves is still a good boxer. He's got a good boxing brain, and he's going to be facing someone who, to a certain extent, is still a raw novice. So I just think Eubank's going to make a load of mistakes, and I don't think the fight is about what Eubank brings. I think it's about what Groves has got left, and I'm not sure that Groves has got a great deal left. But I actually hope that he proves me wrong and actually comes out and produces a performance on the night, because I think in terms of their overall career and personas, I think Groves deserves to walk away from the fight with the win, and then Eubank can come back and rebuild, and Groves can go on to the final against Callum Smith, basically, because I think Callum Smith is going to win.
Good stuff, Terry. We'll get you on next week, hopefully, to talk about the fight. What's your Twitter handle?
At Terry Boxing. So yeah, follow me or mute me if you think I'm talking crap, or even block me. Either way, the job's good in.
The jobs are good and excellent, Terry. We'll catch you next week. Cheers.
Cheers. Have a good one. Thanks, guys. Bye.
No problem. Terry Dooley there. Yes, Donny?
I was going to say, I have a suggestion. Maybe we really want to straighten Michael Benson out and to make sure that he stops stealing that content. And we were just, to dovetail off another subject that we had just talked about, maybe we just need to get MTK to pay a visit to him. I think that it would straighten him right out.
Donny, you're supposed to be the lawyer on the pod, man.
All I talked about was a meeting of people to have a conversation. I didn't imply anything untoward in any way. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, go ahead, Smitho.
Couple of things. There's a parody account for this Benson fella that I genuinely most of the time can't tell the difference between. That shows how shit I think they both are. And also I didn't really care until tonight, but the way that Ben explained it, about it's traffic that maybe could go to a website to keep people like Ben and Terry afloat in businesses that make little or no money. It really hammers it home for me. So it is quite an important issue.
Thanks, Smitho. Right, while I bring in our next guest, Dave the Hater Lowback, I am relying on you to tell everybody about your favourite Roy Jones Jr. moment. Let's return to that. What's your favourite Roy Jones Jr. moment, Dave?
Oh, this is from way back. Well, okay. I was going to say the same thing that some of these other guys have said about the Montel Griffin rematch, because that was probably, for me, his most satisfying win, and he did it in such style. And the first fight was not an easy fight for him. I mean, he was probably down on the cards. He should have been down on the cards at the time that he was disqualified. And he was justifiably disqualified because he was frustrated. And he probably would have stopped Griffin, like, legitimately there, but he didn't. So that's a legitimate loss in my book. And he completely righted the ship in that rematch. First round KO, obliterated him. What I won't say that one though, because you guys have already said that. I'm gonna say the phenomenal rematch with Bernard Hopkins. Revenge.
Yeah, that was great, man. Fucking hell.
You happy enough for that one, Rob? I think that'd be a good one.
No, that was terrible. I felt bad for both of them watching that fight, to tell you the truth. That as I said, for me, after the Glenn Johnson knockout, it was over. Like, he was never the same. Like, I think his last
fight, the second Hopkins fight.
Jones lost the decision in the second Hopkins fight, but it was a marvel fest. Like, it was horrible.
Yeah, I didn't even watch it.
Okay, joining us on the call now, we have our fourth and final guest of the evening. It's a former Miss Bikini Island, Judi Fitzgerald. Judi, you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent stuff. You sent a message earlier to one of my Facebook pages linking to an article from the 42.ie, and I decided to invite you on. Talking about this ring card girl situation, where do your thoughts lie on the fact that the darts have done away with the girls that lead the players to the ring, and boxing might also be following suit?
I feel like it's very disappointing because, like, at the end of the day, this is these girls' job, and, like, the feminists, they really should be for women, not against women, and they're putting women out of work, so that's not really empowering women. And as feminists, that's what they should be doing, empowering women.
A lot of the feminists, they're described as feminazis. That's quite a derogatory term. Would you go along with that, or do you think that they're doing it for the right reasons, they believe?
I don't think that they're doing it for the right reasons. Like, it seems more like jealousy than anything. Like, they keep saying that we're only there because we're pretty. Like, we're only there to look good, but it's actually not all about looks. Like, we have to, like, interact with the crowd, and it's not all about looks, you know. And they think that, like, we're just, you know, born, like, pretty. Like, it's, you really have to work to have a model figure. Like, it takes a lot of commitment, like, regarding, like, diet, training. Like, you don't just walk out to the ring like that. Like, you know, you really have to put the work in to look like that, like a ring girl, you know, like, to look fit, to look sporty. And what we don't want to come across as, like, glamour girls, like they're calling us. We want to be fit and sporty. That's the image we're trying to portray. We're trying to portray a healthy lifestyle. Like, we want to be role models for younger girls, and we are, because we get a lot of girls, like, asking us how we train, and they'd love to be able to get up there in the ring and do what we do. You know, there's a great buzz to it, and so many girls, it's such a great opportunity to put your best foot forward as a model. Like, you can really get noticed as a model. Like, many girls have been noticed as, like, Formula 1 girls, as darts girls, as ring girls. They might have started there and, you know, really worked up in their modelling career. So it's really disappointing because it's actually putting a stop to women's careers.
For you, it's a choice. Obviously, you do what you want to do. But some of these women, do they think that you're, like, sort of airheads who don't realise that you're being exploited?
Yeah, that's what they think. They think that we're airheads, but we're not. Like, I'm qualified nurse, fitness instructor and lifeguard, and I'm currently doing my postgrad in nursing at the moment. Like, we're not airheads. We know exactly what we're doing, and we wouldn't be as successful as we are if we were airheads.
You're from Cork, is that right, Judi?
No, I'm from Limerick, but I trained in Cork. I did my nursing training in UCC.
All right, okay. And can you just tell the listeners some of your experiences being a ring card girl in the boxing and in the MMA? Has it all been positive? Have you ever had, I mean, you obviously get the wolf whistling. Has there anyone ever tried to sort of grab hold of you or anything like that?
No, never. Like, I've worked for Bama, Red Corner Promotions, Celtic Clash. I've worked with Irish Daily Star, and these are all really, really professional companies. And if there was any, like, guarding, anything like that, like, they would be on top of it. Like, it's really strictly run. There's security guards. If there's any foul playing or anything like that, we'd never ever be treated with disrespect. Like, it's kind of like we're part of a family. Like, we all get on so well, like, everyone involved in the boxing and MMA. We always, like, go out for dinner and things afterwards. We love, like, waiting for the next shows. Like, I have a show now on the 3rd of March. It's Ireland's Last Man Standing, and it's going to be aired on TV. we're all like really looking forward to it because we might not have seen each other since the last show. And then I have another one on the 24th of March, Celtic Clash, and there are two events like I'm really looking forward to, and we're all really looking forward to it. And it's not just looking forward to show, it's looking forward to seeing each other, and we're there like to support each other, and we get on really, really well. It's really, really positive, like being able to like, you know, work for a goal. Like I'm working for the show, like that's my goal in my fitness, and then like I just can't wait to go out there, like just to have the buzz of going out there in the big crowds and doing my job. I just love it.
Yeah, we've got Judi Fitzgerald on the line, everybody, at Judi Fitzgerald _ on Twitter and Instagram. Is that right? And you're also on Facebook, Judi?
Yeah, my like page is Judi Fitzgerald.
Just briefly, if any of the guys want to ask any questions, I think Donnie, you were going to jump in with one. This is Donnie Baseball, one of our American contributors.
Yes, Jude. No, I was actually just thinking, it was funny you were saying how much difficulty goes into, if you're going to be a model, there's a lot of, fitness training and everything. Obviously, you want to look good. And it made me think, actually, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this before, but, at the weigh-ins, the ring car girls always appear at the weigh-ins as well. And you must I don't know if have you ever thought about there's a kind of a commonality there between you and the fighters? Both of you have done quite a bit of training to look, at your very best for these occasions. It's kind of a weird exercise in and of itself. I mean, you have basically a predominantly male journalistic boxing, crowd, all of the fans, and they're up there sort of analyzing the fat content of the different male fighters' bodies, and at the same time you're standing there right now next to them. Have you ever thought about it in that way before?
I'm really
Question.
I think the point he was making, Jude, Judy, just to add a bit more concision, I think the point he was making was, do you ever see the commonality between yourself and the boxers at the weigh-ins? Putting yourselves down into fighting shape. You're both scantily clad, all that type of thing.
Yeah, but that's why I think we all get on so well. We all get on so well because we're so similar. We're all like. So boxers wouldn't really drink that much. So ring girls wouldn't really drink because you can't, or we all eat healthy. We're all training. We're all very similar. That's why we get on so well.
I think sometimes, do you ever feel like you're objectified?
No, I really don't. I really don't feel like I'm objectified. I really don't.
I'm just going to say to
because I'm wearing sports gear, like what I wear to the gym. So do I feel objectified when I go to the gym? No, I don't.
I mean,
if I go to the gym wearing the same gear, I don't feel objectified. Why, if I'm going into the ring, should I feel objectified?
Do you think that they might try and ban ring card girls, and then where does it end? Like they might go out and try and ban Victoria's Secret models and all that next?
Yeah. It just does not make sense, and I just feel like it's more like jealousy than anything else, because their argument always is, we're just there to look pretty. We're just there to look pretty. That's like a model's job is to promote brands. That's what a model's job is. If we're hired as models, that's what we're there to do. That's our job. That's not like our thought like that. That's our job. That's our job. We're there to promote brands. We're there to look good. Like we are models. Like models look good. That's just the way it is. Like you don't have not good looking models. Like you're a model if you're good looking. That's the role.
And you're there to yeah. Go ahead.
And we're there to promote the brands and promote the show and entertain the crowd. That's what we're there for.
And also to promote things like the Irish Daily Star. You're there to put the brand forward as well.
Yeah, we're brand ambassadors. That's who we are, brand ambassadors.
Okay, just one more question because we're running out of time with Judy here. No, not from you, Donnie. Adam Smitho-Smith, do you want to ask anything?
It's not really a question. I am sick to death of people being offended and trying to make decisions on behalf of other people. And I think, as Judy's made some excellent points tonight, I think there is some jealousy involved as well, because we're getting people that who've not been in the game of promoting brand ambassadors, ring girls, whatever you want to call them. They've not been involved at all. They're just trying to make comments from some sort of high ground, saying that, and being offended and saying women are objectified when they've had no experience of it whatsoever. Judi is obviously making getting paid some decent money. She's enjoying her job. She's not been offended before. and she's using that to do higher education studies and stuff like that as well. I think it's an excellent example to some of the young girls out there of a way where, you know, they can do one thing and then help to develop it in other ways as well. I just think it's a good thing that boxing so far, and it might change because the world that we live in is pretty mad today, but boxing so far has stood up and kind of said, no, we're not going to bow to the you know, political correctness madness that has happened in the likes of darts, F1, and, you know, advertisements on the TV and stuff like that. I think so far boxing has stood up, particularly the likes of Frank Warren. I know the Sauerlands have had strong words to say on it, and I think that's good that we're standing up for the traditions that we've got, and it seems part of the night out at the boxing. But I've read the piece what you referred to earlier, Steve. Where Judi was making comments in regards to, you know, we've got girls going in the ring with a crop top and some and pants on, but yet the fellas in the ring have only got shorts on. So I mean, are we objectifying men as well? You know,
a glowing endorsement for you there from Smido, Judi.
Yeah, I think those are all like really, really valid points. He's 100% right there. Like these feminists, like I would listen to them more if they actually were, like one of them was ring girl and did it for a night and then felt objectified. Then I might listen. But these are just women who they have no understanding of what we do because they've never done it before. So they shouldn't be commenting when they actually have never experienced it. They have no say because they haven't experienced it. They don't know how it feels to walk out there and be a ring girl because they aren't ring girls, you know.
And in the piece, Judi, I read that your sister's recently come out as a feminist.
No, my sister's always been a feminist.
All right. What do you think?
She's always been a feminist. Like when I won with King Ireland a few years ago, and when I first won that, she was saying, it's objectifying women, but you know, I never took any criticism on board because I'm a qualified lifeguard. I wear a bikini to the beach. I don't think I'm objectifying anyone, you know. Like, I think everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but I think if you're not working as a ring girl, then you shouldn't be able to comment on it because you don't understand that area. So you should just mind your own business. I think all these feminists, they should just mind their own business. They obviously have nothing else to be doing with their time. Like, I'd love to have the time to be sitting down analysing everyone else's jobs. I'd love that. I don't have the time to be doing that. I don't have time to be commenting on other people's lives or trying to be putting other people out of work, you know?
Just the final question for me, Judi. The way things are going at the moment, with things getting banned and society changing, do you think it's only a matter of time before we have a transgender ring card girl? What would you think of that?
Sorry, say that again?
What about a transgender ring card girl? Would you be against that or in favour of that?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't mind at all.
Excellent stuff. I
really wouldn't mind. Like I don't mind. Like if males want to ring boys, I don't mind. If there was transgender, I wouldn't mind.
Well, yeah, actually, Steve was asking that.
I really don't mind.
Steve was asking the question.
Like, I wouldn't be putting anyone out of work as long as it works. Go ahead, you know?
Yep. No, that's brilliant.
I'm open to anything. I'm open to everything.
Excellent stuff. That's good to hear. We'll wrap it up there, Judi. We do really appreciate you coming on this evening, and it's at Judi Fitzgerald _ on the social media.
Yeah, thank you so much, and lovely talking to you all.
You too. Thanks very much. Cheerio.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Judi Fitzgerald there, everybody. Former Miss Bikini 2014. She is in favour of ring card girls keeping their jobs. Donny, I could hardly control you there, man. You were embarrassing me.
I was just saying, I was like...
Cramping his style, Trig.
You thirsty bastard. I bet you had about 2 wanks now end of that phone there.
I was wondering if Steve was asking that question because he was had aspirations to become the first transgendered ring card girl.
No, it's going to be Kelly Maloney.
I think they should keep the ring card girls anyway, because what are all the girls who can't make it as real models going to do if they can't turn up on the rings? You know what I mean?
I thought she made a good case, and I never thought about ring card girls sort of as their own breed of athletes before, and I like that. Props to Judi. Thanks for coming on. I just want to know if she's single.
Ozzy, sorry, did you want to say something?
I can't get on a rant about feminists because we'll be here all night.
Yeah, we need to move on. I think we need to move on. Did you talk about Roy Jones Jr. or is he just going back to sanity?
I didn't know, actually, no. I can keep it short and sweet, though.
Go on.
I think it's fair to say that he's probably one of the best talents that I think a lot of us have probably ever seen in a ring. I can't remember who made the point before, but he was a brilliant athlete. Speed, power, endurance, things like that. Had a couple of flaws, but at the end of the day, who doesn't? Enjoyed a couple of fights, really. Tony won. Just made him look silly. And I didn't mind the Bernard Hopkins first fight as well. I thought Bernard Hopkins after that went on to pretty much beat, kind of nearing, like a real high point in his career. And Jones did a real good job on him. And it's just a shame that he's continued fighting so long. It's somewhat tarnished, all the real good work he did. Seeing him, as like a bit of not really out of shape, but a bit of a mess, like getting absolutely wiped out by like Enzo Macronelli. Not taking anything away from Enzo, but just little things like that. I mean, I did enjoy the fight last night where he was looking at somebody ringside and he just nailed the guy in his face with a jab. That was quite comical, but no, really one of the best talents that I've ever seen, and probably in the top 3 or 5 that I will probably ever see until I drop dead.
It'd be interesting to think about what would Roy Jones have actually fought on as long as he's fought if he had been smart enough, I think, to sign with a promoter early on in his career, because one of the things I've always thought about Roy Jones is that, basically at the very point at which he was just leaving his prime was just about the time that Floyd and Manny were really coming into theirs, and they were making just insane amounts of money. And I think he probably, was kicking himself, being like, fuck, how did I miss out on this, right? Because, he famously would never sign with a promoter or whatever. And, I know whenever you deal with the promoters, Arum, King, Heyman, well, you're kind of dealing with the devil. But, I mean, really, he really missed out on so much money. And I think that he fought on, maybe at least mentally, in part because he always felt like he was making up for something, like all the money that he didn't make and probably deserved to make when he was in his prime, because in his prime, he was the best in the sport. There was no doubt about it.
Right, let's move on. It's 9:30. We have Rob Kelly on the call, Ozzy Smith, Andy Patterson, Donny, Dave the Hater Lowback, and Adam Smido Smith. Let's have a look forward to a few of the things next week. Hater Dave, on Friday the 16th of February, the vacant WBO World Lightweight title is on the line as Raimundo Beltran goes in against Namibia's Paulus Moses. On the undercard, this Kavaliauskas, I think he's Latvian or Lithuanian, 18-0. He's making a few waves at welterweight, fighting against David Avanesian. Good fight there. And also Shakur Stevenson and Bryant Jennings. Tell me about Beltran Moses, Dave. You looking forward to it?
Paulus Moses, that I've seen that guy's name long ago. How long's he been going?
Ricky Burns.
Yeah, Ricky Burns, Dave.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's the last time I remember hearing about him. I'm not interested particularly in that fight unless Paulus Moses has suddenly gotten like really good. Maybe he's on the PEDs now. I have no idea. This card does not really interest me that much. The heat from the card, I guess, comes from the prospect Shakur Stevenson. Bryant Jennings, I like the guy, and I thought he made a great show against Vlad. Also, it was a really fun fight against Luis Ortiz, but I think the guy, I don't think he has too much more to offer the sport. Even though I like him. Same with Beltran. I think he's on the way out. He might have to give us a few more fun knockouts like he tends to do. But yeah, it's like I can't really get behind it. Like it's not really telling much about the future of the sport, or I don't know. It might be somewhat entertaining, but I'm not really amped for this card.
Rob, one night later in Las Vegas, Saturday the 17th of February, we have Danny Garcia returning in a fight that I'm not really that interested in, to be honest, against Brandon Rios. Sugar Ray Robinson goes in against Yordenis Ugas, which could be a quite entertaining fight. And the rematch of David Benavidez against Ronald Gavriel, the WBC super middleweight titles on the line. Gavriel I believe. He put up a decent fight in the first one. He's on the Floyd Mayweather promotional books, I think. But putting that to one side, Garcia Rios, Rob, no real interest in that?
No, because Rios is shot, like, isn't he? It's a cherry pick again from Danny Garcia. I mean, he's getting Brandon Rios at the right time. A couple of years ago, he would have given him. He would have given him a good fight, like Brandon Rios, because he would come forward and put it on him, and you would have had to see Garcia get on the back foot, maybe work off the left hook to get him. The dog's fucking cracking me up here. Hold on, I'm going to put her outside and then I'll come back to you.
That's okay, Rob. You go and deal with the dog, Andy. What's going on about Garcia, Rob Rios, or what's going on with Rob's dog, Andy? More to the point.
Joe Gallagher obviously trying sniffing about again, mate. I was pretty much agree with what Rob says. Another cherry pick. I mean, I know this is some sort of eliminator for WBC title fight or whatever. Rios, whatever's left of him, which I don't think is much, he's not going to improve. He's just going to be the same fighter. He's going to come forward, throw punches, defend with his face and stuff, and then I think he's going to get stopped late. He might make it close. I really don't know. I just really don't know what he's got left. And judging off previous fights, it's not much. I'm more kind of looking forward to, like you said, obviously the Kavaliauskas fight and Alexander Best Putin. I just want to see how these two get on. So a wee bit like Dave, I'm not really kind of over enamored for the main event either, but I'm looking forward to the two prospects coming up.
Good shout. Porky Russ has been in touch on Twitter. He said a mention for Adam Smith, not Smido Smith, the real Adam Smith in my eyes, the genuine one, but Adam Smith on Sky, a commentator who I have to mute now because I can't listen to him anymore. Smith doesn't want Jane Couch on Sky in case she swears, apparently. I don't blame him there, to be honest with you. Jane Couch was the original interviewer of boxers before IFL took over. I think they had a bit of beef not so long back. But anyway, I digress. Aussie, let's bring you in on a question from one of our listeners, Danny Young. We had a similar question last week. He said, with the growing success of the World Boxing Super Series, should we be heading towards that format for English and British titles every year? My shout, says Danny, is choose 2 weight divisions every year and get the best 8 fighters involved. Hopefully it raises TV interest that way. And just before you comment, Felix Matos actually jumped in with a good point, Aussie. He said, this would be great at British level, but the big issue is getting different promoters to allow their hyped-up, unproven fighters to fight one another when they can go easier routes to potential world title bouts.
Yeah, completely agree with that. I don't think the money's there either, in all honesty. You see a lot of these British titles go to purse bids. I think the Scott Cardle, Craig Evans one that happened on a Matchroom card a couple of years ago now was fought for about 15k or something like that. And then you see huge bids like Frank Warren against Chris Eubank Jr. I know the fight didn't go ahead, but he put the biggest purse bid for a British title in history in, so he could have home advantage for Tommy Langford. So as much as it's like it can be a good idea, me personally, I don't think it would work. I think there's too many permutations that would stop it from happening. So all in all, as much as, it could produce good fights, I think if the board can step in and be a lot firmer and make these fights happen and mandate these things and stuff like that, like not stupid decisions like we had JJ Metcalf against Ted Cheeseman put out to purse bids, the belt's vacant, yet they put it out for a final eliminator. Now what's the point? Now the board have got to use some common sense there, because that belt is just lying there dormant. If they put that belt on the line for a vacant title, you've got a brilliant clash for the British title. Instead, they put it forward for a final eliminator, and it got pulled out. So I think you need a bit of assistance from the board, but in terms of the tournament, sadly, I don't think it'd work at domestic level.
Donny, let's party like it's 2011 because Devon Alexander and Victor Ortiz are fighting next Saturday night. Is this something that can get you interested, Donny?
Well, if Victor Ortiz could party like it was 2011, I believe that was the year that he actually, that was the time that I really thought he was going to quiet, and he did quiet all the doubters when he, after the Maidana loss, and he had basically quit in that fight. He came back and he came off the floor, I think it was 2 or 3 times, to beat Berto in a fight where he displayed tremendous heart. And if he could recapture that spirit of 2011, it would be a great fight. I don't think that he has very much left, and he doesn't really seem to be it. I mean, of course, he took those years off and was in those Expendables movies and everything. I think that boxing is kind of the furthest thing from his mind. I'd love to be proved wrong. I was high on the guy back in the day. I did believe in him for a while, but his basically his fights since 2011 have been well, I mean, to say something that they left something to be desired would be the understatement of the century. He's one of the great underachievers, I think, of this era, and it's a shame, really, because I think that he did have talent. I think that the reason why you're getting these fights this weekend, I think that Heyman knows that Rios is probably going to lose and Ortiz is probably going to lose. And then the cash-out fight for both of them, of course, is that grudge match that everybody's waiting for so many years now, and then maybe that'll finally happen. And I think that'll be the end of both men.
To all our listeners and panel members, if you are doing anything next Tuesday evening, then cancel it immediately. Kermit Cintron's back. He's fighting 8-1
wow.
Marquise Taylor. Adam Smitho-Smith's looking forward to that one.
How old is he now? I remember got punched out the ring that time.
He got punched about by Marguerite. So he's 38, Smid.
Fuck off. Just fuck off, Cintron.
Smitho's not happy about this. Smitho, tell me about this, right? What about this heavyweight Joe Joyce? He's fighting against Derek Chisora, apparently, in only his third fight. They're not hanging around. Do you like that type of matchmaking?
Yeah, I do. That fight won't be happening. Chisora's asking for too much money. I think Hay was on about he offered him 80 grand. Hearn makes a good point, to be fair to him, when he says that, Chisora goes and loses to Joe Joyce, he's finished then, like truly finished. I know he's got a number of losses on his record, Chisora, but, I just don't think there's going to be enough money there for Chisora to take the L, because that's what he will be doing. I think he's way past his best, Chisora, and he struggles to get himself in shape now. So, yeah, I mean, if you lose to Joe Joyce, if you don't Chisora and you lose to Joyce, then you're basically finished. So to get to that position, you're going to need more than 80 grand, I think, to be fair. Can't see it happening.
Can't see it happening, says Smido. You heard it here first. Andy, let's get on to the big one next week. Super middleweight division, IBF Intercontinental title over in Germany. Vincent Fagenboots against Rhino Liebenberg.
You prick, Calvin. As soon as I heard IBF, I said, that's not the fight.
He's planned that all day.
You bastard. Aye, win the door, man, aye. Reno Liebenberg, distance fight, I would say. I'm going to try and go for Liebenberg, but I know he's had a couple of gifts in South Africa, so it's probably Vinny's chance to get a home victory here. I'm just disappointed fucking Fagenboots didn't fight John Ryder. I thought Ryder would knocked him out. And I'm basing that off that Nielsen performance. If he fights like that, he could fucking stop that bum. And that's all that guy is a bum. So obviously I'll be supporting Liebenberg.
And he's supporting Liebenberg. We're getting closer, Ozzy. We're getting closer to the big one. Don't worry, I won't hold you off much longer, but I know you're a connoisseur of the undercards, and there's a couple of decent fights on the Groves-Eubank Jr undercard next week. What's the pick of them, Ozzy? Arfan Iqbal, a guy that you've mentioned a few times, against Simon Vallily for the English title. Tommy Langford against Jack Arnfield for the British title. Ryan Walsh against Isaac Lowe for the British featherweight title. What's the pick of the three, Ozzy?
I think I would go with, in terms of like all action and one for the neutrals, probably Ryan Walsh, Isaac Lowe. Real good fight for a British title and an enjoyable one. Lowe he's won the English and he actually boxed for the European against Dennis Chalan. Ryan Walsh boxed against Dennis Chalan. Walsh lost and Lowe drew with him. I think Chalan got a real bad cut and they didn't want to know about Lowe, but in the 3 rounds we did see, Lowe was getting tagged a lot, so it makes for an exciting fight next Saturday. Tommy Langford, Jack Arnfield is a real pick'em. I don't think it's going to be the best to watch, to be honest. Neither are big hitters. Langford, talented boxer. Obviously, I think bar like a bit of a naff win against a journeyman. Obviously, his last meaningful fight was against Kurt Zidze, where I thought he actually started to box okay. I thought he was winning the fight and then got absolutely cleaned out. Jack Arnfield, as Mick Jennings said before, the momentum is really with him. He's had some real good wins as an underdog. He's an underdog again, and I will be picking him to beat Tommy Langford. I think it's a good price. And I'm purely on the basis that he's got the momentum. He's in a real good place, and I think it is his time now. And Arfan Iqbal, Simon Vallily. Now, I think, was it the Commonwealth Games Villili boxed in, or am I wrong there, or is it something like?
I think he did. I remember him fighting Bradis in the pros, but I think you're quite right. And the British cruiserweight scene as a whole, Ozzy seems to have had a bit of injection of life lately.
It has, yeah. And this is a real good fight. And I've on the New Age podcast, I know they get Steve Goodwin on, and he manages Arfanic Belt, and he's real high on him. Now, I've only seen him on a couple of occasions, but he destroyed Wadi Camacho. Absolutely destroyed him, and he's a real big lump. And I think he may just be a bit too much for Villili. I think Villili's been inactive. I mean, he took the fight with Brady absolutely stupidly. It was a mismatch. He lost, and I think just over of injury and inactivity, Iqbal maybe just be too much for him. But I think this is probably the best card as a whole that we've seen from the tournament itself. There's 3 excellent fights on there. I know Zach Parker's on there against some no-mark, and a little fight as well. Danny Craven, Luther Clay, a 3-1 against a 6-1. Danny Craven's trained and managed by Kieran Farrell. Clay, I don't know too much about. I think he's from down Portsmouth way, but that's a good little scrap as well. So it's obviously getting onto the main event, but the undercard is really well put together, and I think the show next week is one where people can just sit there and enjoy it all.
I must admit, I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't looked forward to a fight like Groves and Eubank in a long time. I really am looking forward to it, Smido. You hold me to account on my predictions now. I've flip-flopped backwards and forwards when the fight was first being talked about and we thought there was a chance that they would meet. I fancied Groves heavily. I've gone back to Eubank and I've been back and forward. I know a lot of the guys on the panel fancy Groves, but I'm going to have to stick with my pick, Smido. I'm going for Eubank Jr. I think it's going to be a war. I think there's going to be a lot of nervous energy, a really good crowd in there, a lot of tension. I can see both guys going down. Eubank Jr.'s defensive flaws and his poor footwork and stuff will put him in punching range. And a guy like George Groves has an excellent jab and a lot of power as well. But I just think he's got a lot of miles on the clock, Smid. And I can see towards the end of the fight, after a fascinating brawl, Eubank Jr., the way Joshua did against Klitschko, actually, just getting a rally together and Groves just not being able to get out the way. He's tired. He's up against the ropes. He's given his everything. And Eubank Jr. stops him in the 11th round. I know he's a lot smaller. I know Groves is a lot bigger. But I'm going for it, Smido. I'm going for a late stoppage for Eubank Jr. What about you?
I'm going with Groves. I'm not a massive fan of Groves, as people from a few years back will know. But I mean, I'm half surprised the fight's still going ahead. I mean, there was more than a few of us were expecting Eubank to have pulled the plug on this tournament by now, given that he's actually coming up against a live body. I think Groves is 13-8 for the to win the fight, and I think it's very close to being a 50-50 fight. This is, and if that's the case, if you can get if we're getting around the 13-8 mark for Groves, I think that's a decent enough bet. And I think I've called it that it's the battle of whoever's weakness is worse. So Chris Eubank Jr.'s weakness in this fight is his physical size. I think Groves is going to be significantly bigger than him. And I think that Groves' weakness is his gas tank. And it was interesting the way the last 2 fights taken for these guys took place. I think there was a week or 2 weeks apart. Eubank was first, and I kind of flip-flopped between the two because after the Eubank fight, that's probably the best we've seen him. He jabbed particularly well in that fight, or more in that fight than we're used to seeing. I actually watched the replay of it today, but Yildirim, despite the esteemed Steve Wellings picking Yildirim to do well in the tournament, he was pretty much tailor-made for Eubank, quite compact, stood directly in front of him, and Eubank just teed off on him. It was like some sort of highlight reel, to be honest. But yeah, so that was I was impressed with Eubank there. That's the best I've seen him. Whether the opponent was up to that much, we might find out as that form pans out. And then a couple of weeks later, we saw Groves, and he was pretty good. Obviously, landed a fantastic shot to finish Cox in an entertaining fight. But even within 3 rounds, you could see Groves, was possibly starting to question his gas tank. At the time when I first watched the Groves Cox fight, I thought that Groves was well on the way to blowing his gasket there, despite winning. But I watched it again today, and it probably wasn't as bad as what I thought at the time. Groves was was in a far bit more control than what I remembered the first time round. I just think Groves is going to be too big. I know he's been always been a counter puncher with that, and he's been quick with that with the backhand. But I think he's developed it even more with under Shane McGuigan. I think that's really come on for Groves. The backhand. I know he caught Frotch with it all them years ago and put my hero on his arse, but I think now Groves has got a little bit more variety with it. It's comfortable. He can throw it on the back foot. He can throw it on the front foot. So I think that might be significant for Groves. But yeah, Eubank. Like, who is Eubank's best win really? Is it Yildirim who's not beat many people himself?
Probably.
Yeah, but I mean, there was a lad the other day in work saying, "Oh yeah, Eubank." I mean, because Eubank, we see him on Snapchat and Instagram, and it looks fair play, looks good. He trains hard, and he's a fit lad. But
he gives you good clips in his fights. He passes the eye test because he gives you the ability to take like a 20-second clip that you can show people.
He does, Steve, but he's been doing it against people that are reasonably easy to hit, that are all smaller than George Groves, and unproven. This is Eubank's first test into world class. There is absolutely no doubt about that. So I would just say to anyone, and it has caught the casual audience, it's probably the biggest fight that can be made that doesn't involve Eddie Hearn, which I think is a good thing. So these people at work who were picking Eubank, I said, well, what's Eubank's best win? Well, there you go then. So I just but at the prices, I think you've got to play Groves, and I think the size is going to play a big role in this fight. I don't think that's really been played up enough, to be honest. I think
Give us the odds, Smitho. What are the odds? Have you got them on hand there?
Yeah, so Eubank's 1-2, in the 1-2 range, and Groves is the opposite price of that, which is about 13-8. So they're your prices there. I'll get you up some method of victory odds. So yeah, there has been a little bit of money for Groves. So yeah, Groves is 13-8, and Eubank is around 4-6. So you get a bit better value than the 1-2 that I just quoted you.
Smitho's top tip. Come on, where should we put our money?
Groves. I think this is a 50-50 fight, and you're getting more than 50-50 odds for Groves. Eubank KO 7-4, Eubank decision 11-4. Groves KO is 3-1, and Groves decision is 6-1. I definitely think the value is in Groves. I mean, Eubank is not a super middleweight. It's as simple as that.
Simple as that, says Smid. Rob, I'm not a fan of Eubank Senior, I must admit. I don't really mind. I mean, I'm indifferent to the son, but the old man, he pisses me off just the way he acts and the bullshit, stopping the sparring sessions. He's the ultimate master of rubbish. So I'm in one of these awkward positions, Rob, where I think Eubank Jr. is going to win the fight, but I want Groves to win. Who do you think will win, and who do you want to win?
Well, I didn't really have a horse in the race, really. I'm not a huge fan of either of them. I like Groves' style. I kind of really was willing for him to do it against Frotch the first time, because I thought he had pulled a perfect psych job off on Frotch. And he came within a close distance of doing it, but just ultimately fell short. I think he was going to get stopped in the first fight, got stopped in the second fight, picked himself back up, and had kind of bumps along the way. But now he's back with a world title. I think he shows signs in the fight where it can go away from him, especially late on. We've talked about this before a million times about his gas tank and that. I didn't really have a horse in the race. Like Eubank, I thought has been a hype job for a while. He hasn't fought anybody really, apart from Billy Joe Saunders, which was a comprehensive loss. Spike, you could say, might turn out to be something a little bit better, but Spike is a certain level and he can punch very hard. But that's he's getting a crack now at a bigger fight. Good for him, but he hasn't really fought. He's been matched perfectly with Abraham. Yildirim, we don't know what he's going to be like. It was a good shot that he caught him with. So on form, probably 50-50 fight. I'd edge with Groves, but I tell you what, I really want Groves to win after Eubank's Senior making those comments about Nick Blackwell. There's no need. Don't keep bringing that up every time to try and intimidate an opponent when a fight is made. People, you know what I mean? That guy, he should know better as well after fighting Michael Watson. When he put some kind of prolific spin on it when he's talking about it, some absolute trash. Some kind of one of his poetic verses and all absolute nonsense. Don't be bringing that guy's name up into it. He nearly died in the ring. Granted, he should have never sparred again after that. But in another 30 seconds he could have been dead. Like, would you be bringing it up then? Like, it'd be like Kovalev bringing it up every time he has a fight coming up. Well, you know, I killed someone in the ring before. By the way, you're coming in the ring with me and I killed someone. I don't care about it. It's just, it's not nice. Like, and I hope Groves beats him after that one.
Will you be watching the fight live, Rob? Are you looking forward to it?
Oh yeah, I'll watch it. Like, I think I'm going out on the beer, like, so I'll watch it somewhere. But like I said, I don't really have a horse in the race. I'm not a big fan of either of the two guys. I'm loving the series for the cruiserweights and the super middleweights. I think I tipped Groves beforehand to win the tournament, so hopefully he will. But Eubank, yeah, just those comments really wound me up this week. Like, I didn't like that at all. Like.
Yep, completely agree with that. McKetch on Twitter, regular listener, says that Eubank's best win is a past his best Arthur Abraham. Donny, Richard Swig doesn't agree with me. I'm going with Eubank, as you know. Richard Swig says that he's in agreement with Kurt. I think Groves is the clear favourite. I'm a bit surprised that people are confidently picking Eubank. I wouldn't say I was confidently picking him. I think, says Richard, it's a 70-30 in Groves' favour. Would you concur, Donald?
Yeah, yeah, I would say about 60-40, but yeah, I think he is, and I'm actually shocked when I didn't actually look at the odds for this fight, but when I heard them from Smitto, I was shocked actually to hear that that Eubank is favored that heavily. I would have definitely thought Groves was going to be the favorite, just because, I mean, he's, let's face it, I mean, he's been places that that Eubank simply hasn't been before. Yes, he's came up short in several world title fights, but he also came up on the positive end in world title fights, and I mean, he's so far more experienced in the ring, and this is really, in my mind, really Eubank's first real test. Well, of course, there was I understand he was very young for the Saunders fight and very green, but Saunders wasn't at his best then at that point either. And I just think that Eubank doesn't move his head very much, and I think that he gets by on a lot of his athleticism. And a style like that has been very successful against, like, a guy like Arthur Abraham, who keeps his hands at home all the time and just shells up. And Eubank was just able to, just move around him all the time and throw lots of punches. And he didn't have to worry about very much coming back at him, because Abraham, frankly, doesn't throw a lot of punches, even when he was in his prime, let alone at this tail end of his career. I really thought it would be Groves, and to see these odds the way they are, to me, is very surprising. That being said, even though I thought that Groves was the clear favorite for this fight, Seb actually got me thinking the otherwise. He had texted me recently, and I'll just read you what he said. And this is actually, it makes me now, it's going to be like more of a coin flip. He said, Eubank all day for me. I don't see how Groves is going to avoid a tear-up for very long. He's got legs and a jab, but he doesn't have the pure boxing ability of a Billy Joe Saunders. He'll be drawn into exchanges, and Chris Eubank will outlast him. Groves is the harder hitter, but he doesn't necessarily take it very well, and you don't have to be a big hitter to grind down Groves. Junior will be touching him solidly and often making him work, and that should be enough. Chudinov was busting him up pretty good prior to Groves throwing the kitchen sink at him in a desperate but ultimately successful bid to end the fight, and Eubank brings a more intense, athletic style of pressure than Chudinov. So there's that. And to be honest with you, the only crime here, in my opinion, is that this isn't going to be shown on American television. This is going to be an incredible fight, and the fact that HBO hasn't picked it up, to me, is criminal. Bob Arum's on ESPN now. Heyman's, all his fighters are either on, the PBC stuff or on Showtime. And so, I mean, basically HBO is marketing itself as the network that'll bring us all the best stuff in the international boxing realm.
Well, Donny, don't let me interrupt your train of thought too much, but we had a question in on this, so let me throw it in now because you're picking up on these points. Stephen Jones said, do you think that the lack of American influence, I think he means like televisually and stuff, has been a positive thing for the World Boxing Super Series? So the fact that we haven't got you lot involved has sort of kept it running a bit smoother maybe, or do you think it's to its detriment that HBO haven't got involved?
Absolutely, because the Americans fucking ruin everything they touch. Look at their foreign policy.
Wait. How can you say that not bringing? I mean, these cruiserweight fights have been amazing fights. These in this fight in the super middleweight series, this fight is going to be an amazing fight. I mean, how can you say that not bringing it to another massive audience is somehow helping it? I don't understand what the hell you're saying. How is it good when good fights aren't televised in a major media market?
Well, you tell me, Donny. How is it?
I don't know. Apparently, Andy has an answer.
I never got an answer. I was just being facetious.
According to Eddie, Americans ruin everything they touch, and that is certainly true in the boxing world. Just look at Ricky Hatton.
I mean, the only thing that maybe you could say is that maybe because there wasn't the American TV money in it, and there wasn't that aspect of it. Maybe it made people more apt to fight each other because they weren't fighting over so much money or something. I mean, sometimes, yeah, when there's too much money involved, guys get a little bit skittish about fighting each other. I could see that, but I do think it's a shame that for those of us who love boxing, we're going to have to go search this out on the internet somewhere to get it, and that to me, that's silly. This is the kind of fight that deserves to be aired in the United States, and it's a shame that it isn't being aired.
Happy hunting.
Oh, go ahead, Andy.
No, I just saying happy hunting, that's all.
Yep, happy hunting, Donny. We'll come to you in a second, Andy. Just before we do, Ozzy, the corner work. Let's have a look at the respective corners. I've been critical of Eubank Senior, and we've said it before. During a crisis, is he going to be imparting the right type of information? Can Ronnie Davis hold the kind of authority that Eubank Jr will listen to if he has to box to a plan? If he's not doing the right things, will the corner be able to get the message through to him? And the same for the other corner. Shane McGuigan, a relatively inexperienced trailer. He's had a lot of high-profile fighters. He seems a more calm and influence, and I like his advice. Do you think that Groves probably has the better corner on the night?
100%, without a doubt. And I've got to disagree with your point there in terms of McGuigan being inexperienced now, because he's been in the corner for some relatively high-profile fights now.
Mm-hmm.
That's more than a lot of trainers will have in their entire career. And McGuigan is probably, I mean, we saw what he did with Frampton, and while people may not rate Scott Quigg, they nailed the game plan to an absolute, it was superb. And I think they're going to do something similar with Groves against Chris Eubank Jr. Now, on the other hand, you've got a senior in the corner along with Ronnie Davis and a cutman. And you've got to feel for Ronnie Davis because the guy is just, he's got so much knowledge, experience, etc., things like that to put across, and they just take the piss out of him. And the corner work's a joke. Like I've mentioned previously, that there was one fight I watched and Senior got in the corner and he just started like throwing shadow boxing, like throwing a jab and stuff like that. And you look at it and you think, how is that benefiting your lad? They treat him like he's this complete fighter. The sparring they bring in is aids. It's appalling. They just bring in punch bags. And when they do get somebody that resembles, like a bit of a fight back, like I've mentioned before, they had LaRon Richardson, who's a real slick boxer in the Warren stable. And he took the piss out of Eubank for 6 rounds. And they sent him packing because he essentially wasn't there to stand in front of him and get hit. So I think the corner work will play a part, and overall, I think Groves can make this easy for him. I think we did on the turn of the year pod. We discussed this fight in detail, and my opinion's not changed. Chris Eubank Jr., aside from Billy Joe Saunders, has been matched extremely well. He's boxed a lot of guys that will stand in front of him and be there to hit. Arthur Abraham, Reynold Quinlan. He destroyed Tom Doran. Nick Blackwell just came forward. Spike was there to hit. We all know what Tony Jetta was. He was a kebab shop owner. Dmitry Chudinov stood in front of him. The only person that has boxed and moved was Billy Joe Saunders, and he made him look stupid at times. It was only for the poor conditioning of Saunders that made the fight somewhat competitive further down the line. Now, people can criticise George Groves all they want, and he's there to be hit and stuff like that. He's only ever lost to Badu Jack and Carl Froch. Now, that's not a bad thing, that at all, really. He's been there. He's got the experience in the bigger fights, and he's boxed the better caliber of opponents. He's also absolutely huge at super middleweight, and he seems to have sorted his conditioning out a much better and making the weight since he's got with Shane McGuigan as well. Always a bonus. Now, the Eubank team admit themselves, bar Ronnie Davis, that Chris Eubank Jr. is a middleweight. He's just up at super middle for this tournament and this chip shop IBO belt. Now, what I would say is it can be a downfall on Groves in terms of if he does stand there and trade, but at the same time, Eubank goes in so wild. Groves could stop him. He hits so hard. His punch power at this is world level. It's world class, and he hits hard. And I think he will beat Chris Eubank Jr. I think he'll be too big for him. He's a better boxer. He can move the jab. As much as people say Spike O'Sullivan, certainly he did wobble Chris Eubank. Now George Groves hits a lot harder than Spike for me, and from what I've read from a couple of other people as well. So for me, I think this is. I'll be going to the bookies now and snapping their hands off at the price that they're giving on Groves because he's the proven fighter. Eubank Jr. isn't. And I think it's a fight that Groves can really look good in.
Andy, I'm trying with not much success here on BoxRec of all places to find out who the referee is for this contest. Any idea? I mean, you think BoxRec would have it listed? That's what they're there for.
Unless there's some sort of dispute going into it, beforehand, which I wouldn't think they should have. I mean, would you want? You want a home ref for this fight? I would say so. They want the Americans touching it in case they fuck it up,
Which British ref don't you want to see, Andy?
Terry O'Connor's still refereeing, isn't he? Just
about, if that's what they call it, yeah.
Aye, and I know Dave Parrish has retired since then, so we might get him on judging, whatever. Anyway, but that's for the fight itself. I pretty much agree with everything what Ozzy was saying there. Probably all of it actually, and what Rob was saying. Again, it's about down to levels at the end of the day, and Eubank hasn't really shown us his level. It's okay doing it on Instagram and all that sort of shite and fighting the Tony Jetters of the world. At best he's proven to us that he's beat up on pure lyricism Arthur Abraham, who we all know is done as a fighter. Yildirim stands in his wheelhouse, so obviously he was going to throw punches, uppercuts, his wild hooks and stuff like that. Eventually he's going to land something, and if the guy's balance is off, if you haven't got a solid base like Yildirim didn't have as he was trying to throw with Eubank, you take a shot, your grounding is absolutely fucked, and you're down, and that is it. Look at Groves. He's past his prime or whatever, but experience you cannot buy, and that's what George has got. He's got a shitload of experience now. I look at the Tudorov fight and I look at the Jamie Cox fight. Two guys who tried to put it on Groves for like the word go. They had him on the back foot, had him up against the ropes from time to time, and what did Groves do? He picked it off. He was digging the right uppercut to the body. He was left hooking. He was bringing the right hand into play over the top and stuff. A lot of people actually underestimate George Groves fighting off the back foot. Okay, as I say, he's maybe not the same athlete as he was, say, post Froch 1 or whatever. But he's still shown he's an intelligent fighter. He's got the savvy, he's got the brain, he can move about, he can still do it off the back foot. And Speedo quite like to point out as well, he's got a great counter right hand. If you look at what he put Froch doing with that first fight, that was a counter right hand that he threw there as Froch tried to attack him square on. But at the same time, Eubank hasn't proven to us of any level as to where he's at. We've never seen him take punishment like Groves has. We've never seen him have to dig it to the well like Groves did against Kenny Anderson, for example. Guys like Tunov were putting it upon him and stuff. Badu Jack and that, really hard fight. James DeGale was coming on strong late on in their fight as well. So, all these big time experiences, all these big fights under the cameras, the big events, he's done it. He's been there. You cannot just write that off, unless, as I say, he gets caught up in the emotion, which Groves generally doesn't really do. I think he's quite a sensible guy. He might get dragged into it where he's going to have to, at some point, he's going to have to stand and trade. It's inevitable. He's going to be against the ropes from time to time, and he's going to have to trade with Eubank because you didn't want the bullshit British stoppage, whereas Eubank's tailoring up all these shots. No land. I mean, you've seen Eubank, basically telegraph his right uppercuts from time to time. You just don't know if Groves just tucks up, covers up, and Eubank's just wading in all these shots, that no landing cleanly. Could the ref jump in and stop the fight? Could we get a bullshit stoppage here, which we didn't want to have? We want a clear, concise winner. To me, I just think everything goes towards Groves. Again, Eubank's a kind of boxer athlete type thing, but his technique is nowhere near as polished as what Groves is. And it's all saying again is if you're shot, the last thing goes your punch, and Groves has still got the punch. And I just don't see this fight at some point. I mean, I just don't see Eubank going through this entire fight. A, not getting hurt, and possibly B, getting either stopped or dropped. I just don't see it. He's never proven to me any otherwise. And I've harked back to it before about the Spike O'Sullivan right hand. Okay, it hurt him a little bit. And Spike's probably at best, European level? Groves has been there and done it with the absolute best available to him at that time. So I think everything points towards Groves. I'm going to go for Groves. Possibly, I'm not decided it's going to be like a points win or a late stoppage, but I just don't see Eubank getting through 12 rounds with his sloppy technique and not getting tagged and potentially stopped. I just don't see it.
Andy doesn't see it. Final word to you, Dave the Hater Lowback. Just leading you in, picking up on a point that Rob Kelly made, quite a salient point actually about Eubank Senior, talking about the Nick Blackwell thing. I think this is bad form from Eubank Senior as well, because obviously Groves has had his own struggles against the likes of Edward Gutknecht. So he's maybe just slipping a little bit of doubt in there, Eubank Senior. It's a bit naughty, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, and there you hit on why. Well, the main reason why I want Groves to win is because I really don't like Eubank Senior. I don't like his son either, but Eubank Senior is just such a twat, like all around. He always has been. I've never liked him in the ring either. Thought he had that obnoxious swagger when he would just kind of strut around like he was winning a fight when he was not, and then he would get bailed out by his power and his, admittedly fantastic chin, which I think saved his ass many a time, and the judges saved it the other few times. I think I do lean towards Groves in this fight, but Seb's breakdown of it's throwing me off here. So also some of this other stuff you guys have said, because I can't really disagree with anything Seb said or anything that some of you other guys picking Eubank have said. I do still think, though, the size will be a factor. And I think, Steve, you said something about there's going to be a lot of nervous energy. I think that that could be a definite factor against Groves, but I'm going to just go and say that he, just based on his last performance, he looked calmer in there. He looked more composed. He looked like he was sticking to a plan and felt in control of things, which he certainly did not look in previous fights that he's lost. So maybe Shane McGuigan has been that calming influence on him, and maybe he will be composed. And I think if he's composed, there's no reason Groves should lose this unless he's a complete idiot or completely gets in his own head. He's got the advantages here for the most part, except for the gas tank. And all he needs to do is set up a couple big shots and catch him coming in. Like Eubank Jr. is wild. He's not particularly good defensively. He doesn't box and move. He comes forward. Groves should have this if he doesn't get in his own head or if he doesn't make a stupid mistake. Plus the size advantage, plus the power advantage, plus the vast experience advantage. Groves has been in with the top guys aside from Andre Ward, and done all right, and most notably against Froch. So, yeah, I got Groves probably mid-round stoppage, but it's certainly not a sure thing because I picked Groves before and he's let me down before. Most notably against Badu Jack. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Groves 60-40.
What was going to ask is, say Eubank is getting tagged up and felt up a wee bit and stuff. What is he going to do totally differently that he doesn't do? Or what's he showing you that he can do differently? All he could do against Saunders, which was 4 years ago, obviously, right? But he hangs on for 6 rounds and then he starts to try and kind of outwork him. What can he do differently? His jab's no great. He jumps into shots. He's wild with shots and stuff like that. But if he's getting tagged up, what can they tell him to change it up? If he knows he's losing that fight after, say, the 6 round mark, say it's 6-0 after 6 rounds, what can they tell him to do it differently? Just keep working him out. Just keep working. Just use it. Just try and overpower him. Just see if he gasses.
They won't tell him
anything.
anything.
Counter puncher. He can't counter punch.
They won't tell him anything, and this is the thing about the corners, is that they don't allow Ronnie Davis to do anything. It's Senior who takes the lead, and he doesn't do anything. He doesn't say anything. They just stare. He just stares at his son in the corner and things like that. And I think ultimately it'll be his downfall. Now, it says it all when he went to Adam Booth. What did he have? 1 fight, and then Booth walked away. It says it all for me that. Now, Adam Booth is one of the best in the business, and he sacked him off. Nobody sticks with the guys for a while, and I think I think a corner work will really, really go against him. And like Andy said, what can he do different? What can he do different? The only thing that will benefit him is if Groves' tank does empty in rounds, say, 8, 9, and obviously Eubank is still there, and then he's got to hold on, for 9, 10, 11, 12. Then
that could absolutely happen, us.
Yeah, and
that could definitely happen.
I agree with that. But at the same time, we're not. He doesn't gas, like it's completely gone after round 6. I think a lot is being made of that. And I think it's definitely improved in the past couple of fights as well. It's going to be interesting to see what I think Groves looks like on the scales.
Yeah.
Well, Smido, here's a scenario for you that just occurred to me. Whenever Eubank Sr. is always talking about fighters taking beatings and knowing when to pull the fighter out and bringing up Nick Blackwell and all this unsavoury stuff, it's always on the supposition that it's going to be Eubank's opponent who's taking the beating. What happens if Eubank Jr. starts taking a really bad beating from Groves? Will Eubank Sr. then be reticent to throw in the towel? Or if he's put in this conundrum, how do you think he'll react?
Oh, great question. Well, they said that they would never throw in the towel, I think they was they having comments towards Kell Brook, I think, after he went down to Golovkin. I don't really know. I can't see Eubank taking a beating pretty much ever, to be honest, because he is very, very fit. He could well get put on his backside, but I don't think he's the type that would take a prolonged beating so far from what I've seen anyway. But and that's why I'm going back to what Ozzy said. I think this is why it's such an intriguing fight, because George Groves has gassed before on more than one occasion, will probably happen again in the future. And when he does, and I did think this the first time round against Cock, when he does kind of fall apart and he does gas and he loses his senses kind of thing, it's very visibly apparent to all watching the ref and the opponent, etc. I mean, you could argue that's part of what happened against Froch in the first fight. He just physically fell apart. Maybe he wasn't the most hurt we've ever seen someone before, but physically he was stumbling around. He went back to the ropes kind of thing. Cox did put him under some pressure last time, but I think, and he's, Groves has had difficulty making the weight, and he admits as much. So again, as Ozzy said, it will be interesting to see what Groves looks like on the scales. With his pale skin, which I can certainly identify with, is he's never one to look like an Adonis on the scales. But
do you gas out quickly as well, Smid?
Oh, I gas it. I'm a 2-minute man, me, Steve. But yeah, that's why I think it's such a really good and really intriguing fight. But as Andy mentioned, the experience from corner and fighter in the Groves camp at the real top level, I think should show.
Hey, by the way, Eubank better not quit, by the way, after all this fucking shite that him and
that's what I'm wondering, yeah. That's what I'm wondering.
They better not fucking quit on this one.
Right, quick round table, final predictions. That's all I want and nothing more. I'm feeling very lonely because I think I'm the only person who's going with Eubank. TKO 11 on an exhausted Groves. Prediction, Smido, when's it going to end? What round and who's the winner?
I'm going to pick Groves to win on points in an entertaining fight where at least one man hits the canvas.
Hey to Dave Loback.
Groves knocks him down a few times and the ref waves it off in 6th round.
Donald.
Groves KO 6.
Andrew.
I'm going to say Groves decision. I'll probably change. It's a good thing about this fight, and that it's that type of fight. It's got you kind of hanging each way. I was like this with Klitschko Joshua, but I'm going to go with Groves.
That's the type of fight you want, Ozzy. What about you?
I'm thinking points now because it's 6-1, which is a real good price, and he can outbox him. But some of me does think that he could stop him. But at the moment, I'm going with Groves points.
And finally to you, Rob. Come on, Eubank, Rob. Come on, me and you.
No, it's got Groves points, dude. I'm not going to rule out this fight ending controversially somehow. Don't know if it's going to be a stoppage on a cut or a head or something, some kind of controversial win where Eubank somehow performs like shit but gets a win out of somewhere. I just have a sneaky feeling that something like that's going to happen, because there's always kind of that voodoo around the Eubanks. Like, I don't know. Eubank Senior's career was a mirage, by the way, for a long time. Apart from his domestic clashes, he really fought some dross around the years. He didn't probably have a decent, apart from the first Ben fight and Watson. After that, he wasn't want to fight anyone until he went with Frank Warren, was he? So, it's always kind of just really a pain in the arse, the two of them, aren't they? I'd love to see Groves, but so I wouldn't rule out some kind of controversial ending next week.
Bit of controversy, Smid.
Yeah, Steve, I've got a question. You know how they've got this fourth judge, and where, if it's a draw with the traditional three judges, they go to the fourth judge for the purpose of the tournament.
Yeah.
If, for example, it's called a draw by the three judges, would that mean the result, regardless of what the fourth judge says, would that mean the result officially for boxing records? I don't know what appears on BoxRec. Would it appear as a draw, but the fourth judge is only used for the
purposes of the tournament?
I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah. So it won't go down as a loss. It'll just go down as someone proceeds to the next round, but it was actually...
Yes, I would imagine so, but I don't have an answer for you, Smido. If anyone on Twitter knows, then hit us up quickly or in time for next week's show.
That, because Eubank's already wiped one loss off his memory. He'll certainly have a good excuse to do it again if that was to happen to him with the fourth judge.
Yeah, good question.
That's a really good question. I probably has something to do with the sanctioning bodies. They probably would have a say about that. That's really interesting. I don't know. I mean, hopefully we won't have to come to that outcome and find out what the result of that is. But hopefully we'll get a decisive outcome. But that's a very interesting point.
Well, I imagine the fact that with the sanctioning bodies, Adam, you only... Oh, everyone seems to have fallen off. You only have 3 judges available. So as far as they're concerned, and as far as the records are concerned, you have to score it as a draw. The judge is only being brought in for the purposes of the World Boxing Super Series. So I don't really know what my answer was there. I think I came to some conclusion.
Let's just hope the judges can actually count or calculate a scorecard properly compared to the other 2 last week.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's true.
So, Steve, are you the only person taking Eubank?
Yeah, it seems to be, Donnie, yeah.
Well, you and Seb, maybe. But anyways, I was just going to say, though, I will say this. I do think it's about 60-40 Groves. I wouldn't be surprised to be proved wrong if Eubank does do this. And I know he's I was going to say if he pulls it off, but actually he's the favorite.
Are you hedging your bets here, Shep?
Pardon?
Are you hedging your bets here, Shep?
No, I'm not hedging. I was just going to say this, though. I'm picking Groves. I'm picking him. I really believe he's going to win. But if Eubank does do this, I will just say that, there'll be no excuses on my end anyways. I will give him the respect that I don't think I have given him to this point in his career. If he's able to do this, to me, he will have really proved something, and he's going to deserve all the accolades that he's going to get for having pulled this off. And it'd be exciting to see him do it. I have nothing against him, and I'm not going to let my opinion of all of his father's antics influence the way that I look at him as a fighter. I think that I just don't think that he has the experience to do it. But if he does do it, I think everybody needs to give him credit on this podcast because everybody's picking against him.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not picking Eubank for any contrarian reasons or to try and be a smart ass. I just don't trust Groves. It's just as simple as that. I just don't trust him. But I hope he wins.
Steve, right. Final question on this Super Series.
Yep.
Are both finals set to take place on the same night in the same venue?
No.
Oh, that's a bit shit.
That would be awesome if it was, but no.
One of them's in Saudi Arabia, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know one of them is. I just wondered if they both were on. I mean, to me, that would make more sense, but...
The planned date for the Super Middle one, I think it's in June, and it's going to be at the O2 Arena.
Oh, right, okay. That makes sense. Obviously, there's going to be some British involvement, at least one.
Just before we go on to the Bellew of the Weeks, Dave, I have a bit of housekeeping to do on the computer here, so I'm going to bring you in very briefly, if you can. It's actually 28 years ago to the day that Buster Douglas beats Mike Tyson? I know this isn't a talk about this in 1 minute type of question, really isn't. But any brief comments about Buster Douglas doing Mike over in Tokyo on the 11th of February 1990?
Well, it was really a fantastic moment, and since we don't have that much time, I'll say that uppercut that Buster Douglas landed was perhaps maybe in the top 5 best uppercuts I've ever seen landed in boxing history. That started the finish off for Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson himself actually landed, I think, a pretty good uppercut that put Buster Douglas down and almost had him out, but there was some controversy over the count. I don't know. All the details you could ever want to know about the fight, well, not all of them, but most of the details you'd ever want to know about the fight are included in the HBO Legendary Nights documentary on the fight, which was really good. You can find it on YouTube and probably broken up into multiple parts. So I would suggest watching that because it's very good. Just something that we'll probably see again happen in history, but not very often. One of those phenomenal upsets that you get, and one of the reasons that we love boxing is you never know what'll happen, and the mental game plays such an important role. The emotional game, the condition of fighters, what physical and mental matters so much more than just who's the better fighter.
There's also a good book out there actually by Joe Layden, The Last Great Fight. Well worth a read actually. Got 5 stars on Amazon and stuff. It's really, really good book. Gives you really good insight as to what Douglas was going through to try and train for that fight and what he went on to become and stuff. That guy, I think he almost died by diabetic coma. I think he ended up slipping into and stuff. He ended up as big as 400 pounds and that. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, he made a comeback in boxing just because of that.
Yep.
Fought mostly journeyman in that and lost by knockout to one of them, but he won most of them, and it was actually a little second career for him as well, which you often see with the heavyweights.
Donnie, very brief comment from you.
Yeah, I was gonna say the thing about that fight is no matter whatever you think of, Tyson wasn't taking him seriously, and Buster trained, and he got serious in the way that he was never serious about boxing before, and there's all of that, and then there's the count, and there's all that controversy. But I think number one, I think that fight stands out, not only as a seminal achievement in boxing, but just in sports, to just show that, nothing's impossible. I think it inspires people, right? Anytime people think they're counted out in sports or in life, Buster Douglas is the shining example as to why you should never count yourself out. But in addition, there's also the issue of, in terms of the odds that were put up on that fight, where Buster Douglas was 42-1, Vladimir Klitschko fought some kind of no-hopers. I mean, remember that Italian guy, Francesco? What was his name?
Francesco Pianetta?
Yeah, Netta or whatever. Even he was like 13-1 or 15-1 or whatever. Odds like that have never even been seen before, because ever since it's like a watershed. After that era, the bookmakers didn't even want to put up those kind of odds on fights anymore, because it made them realize that literally anybody could be beaten on any given night. I don't even think when Danny Garcia fought that guy, who was the guy, the Salka, even that wasn't 42-1. And that was probably the biggest mismatch of the last 15 years. Odds like that simply aren't seen anymore in boxing because people got wise to the fact that anything could happen. It's just unbelievable. And like I said, it stands alone in terms of upsets. I mean, it puts every other upset, not just in boxing, but I think in sports generally, I think it puts it to shame. And everybody who you talk to, I mean, you could talk to your parents, you could talk to people. I mean, I remember watching it on Sunday morning, because it was a Sunday morning, because it was in Japan, and nobody could believe it, and everybody knows where they were when that fight happened. If you talk to people who are fans of boxing at that particular point in time, they can, much like, I hate to say something like this, but and I don't want to draw any sort of negative comparisons, but in the same way that people remember where they were on 9/11 or something like that, everybody can tell you who watched that where the hell they were when they found out that Mike Tyson got knocked out. I mean, it's just one of those things that like everybody remembers, and it'll never be forgotten, and we'll be talking about it 50 years from now.
Do you want to say anything, Andy?
No, mate, I'm fine. On you go.
No problem. Right, let's get on to the Bellew of the Weeks, and then we'll get out of here so we can turn the podcast around quickly, hopefully just after 10:30. First nomination from our regular contributor, Chad Hogan. He's still going on Twitter, at Sir Arthur Day 9. He's recommended Rafael Rogaski here. Rogaski was talking about a fighter called Selecki. He said, Selecki is something special, a fast-handed warrior with an iron heart. He may be unknown to you, sir, but you have my word that he'll step up to the challenge. Okay, then. Conor Benn is being lauded as the next Matchroom superstar. He signed a new contract. He's there beaming with Eddie and Barry. Stuart Howlett said, good news, a fighter that will get better and better. I can see him being a 2-weight or more world champion in the future. And Bellew Paco Ali nominated him for that. What have we got here? Another one, Smart Ravens fan, world champion in 2018 is Conor, hashtag Team Ben. Jack Morgan has nominated JD. He's called Conor Benn the future of Matchroom after Joshua. Who have we got here? Fred Sirex has been nominated for talking about Bradley Skeet. Sorry, he said, if only we were still in the 1980s, Bradley Skeet. Too many paper champions and cowards out there who know they can't compete with you. Big Daddy Bunce, what a mockery this sport is. Right, what else have we got here? Talk Sport have the rights to the Groves versus Eubank Jr fight that we were just talking about. And Stuart at the Stug 1985 said, how can you guys show it for free when it costs so much on ITV box office? What channel are you on? Nobody's told Stuart that Talk Sport, Michael Benson's home, is in fact a radio station and not a TV channel. Andrew has nominated Damien for talking about Roberto Duran. He's compared Duran's run to Deontay Wilder, Andy. Deontay Wilder and Duran being compared here with their longevity in the fight game.
Oh, mate, I seen that. As Andrew G sent us that one, and I tried to follow that. I suppose it said Duran only beat Ray Leonard. All that lightweight talk is garbage. He's vastly overrated. Aye, right, okay, mate. He's literally like classed in the top 3. You ask any old school historian or whatever, and that, especially like they'll have Duran top 3 lightweight of all time. As I said it before, man, Duran's lightweight resume alone is enough for him to get in the hole.
1,000,000%. People don't know what they're talking about. Muppets.
Talking of Muppets, actually, Andy, Mark Halsall nominated Magic Matt 11, Matt G. You ended up with a back and forward with him. If reports of a £4 million fee for the Joshua versus Klitschko fight are correct, Michael Buffer might be taking his time with this one. That's the new Matchroom competition. And you had a back and forward with Matt G over this?
He's apparently saying there's been reports and that about, was it for the Joshua Klitschko fight that Buffer got $4 million or £4 million for that fight? There is no fucking MC in the world getting fucking $4 million. Fucking behave.
Behave yourself, says Andy. It wouldn't be a Bellew of the Week without a Spencer Fearon quote. Joey at Master Mode 33. Spencer was talking on the Toe to Toe podcast. He said Natasha Jonas is the female Errol Spence. Chad Hogan has nominated Tommy Boxio. Hey, Eddie, will there be a gloves are off for either the Brook or Khan fight as a promo?
Fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Gagging for a retweet, that one, eh?
Pretty much. Talking of the Michael Buffer competition for the new MC, Martin Hurry nominated, a few people nominated this guy actually, at Naz966, Mr. Charisma. Go over to Naz966. He had a go at being the next Michael Buffer. It's not an easy job, Naz, but maybe you need to do a little bit more practice. I don't know who nominated this one. I think it's someone called Ghost on Instagram. The screenshot doesn't get it all in, but he called Marco Antonio Barrera Marcos Barrera and called him a boxing legend, apparently. Craig Simmons, Eddie Hearn, you're a man of the people, ain't you, fella? Can't you team up with the Boxing Voice and Nez Ghetto? I think that's the guy from the Boxing Voice. Do the boxing world and fans a favour, Andy, and pull some strings to push EA to make a new Fight Night game. Imagine AJ and Matchroom on the PS4 or Xbox.
Oh, he look like Ivan Drago, mate. Except for he's black,
Black Ivan Drago. Chad Hogan has also nominated Mike Coppinger. He said, the great Rocky Marciano achieved 49-0 and then retired. If Deontay Wilder can indeed reach his lofty goal, he won't just be indisputed. He'll be legendary.
Jesus Christ.
Michael Benson sent out a tweet, you won't be surprised to hear, talking about the Ramirez Imam fight. Boxing Kingdom got involved and said, Michael equals knowledge. I'm sure Ozzy would agree with that. Michael equals knowledge, Oz?
Aussies.
No.
Chad also nominated Michael Benson. Ozzy, you could maybe explain to the listeners. Mike put out a big screen. What was it, like a yellow-backed statement this week? What was Mike making a statement about?
Admitting all his faults in his Twitter account. He admitted he waved the white flag, said he'd done wrong, attempted to do some changes, but then later down the line said he's not going to do it all the time. So it says it all, really, doesn't it?
And while we're on the subject, have you got any nominations for this week? Mike's had it rough, Ozzy, not again. Come on.
Well, it'd be rude to leave him out from me, wouldn't it? So, Michael Benson.
Some people have sent me a few nominations on my Twitter feed as we speak. I can't actually get to them at the moment. I will try. Andy, do you have anything to add?
Yes, so I've got a few. I want to put Derek Cooper up for his not really up for a Bell of the Week, but you know this fucking shite that Eddie and Marshman they obviously try to get more money, con more money out of people and stuff like that, right? So you've got to send your own video of an MC. I thought Derek's was fucking brilliant. Right at the end of that, it's just basically gauge your fucking money. So I really like that one. I want to give one to the PBC again. You know how if you go to their YouTube channel, they always got like this fighter of the week. Who do you think they've got this week for fighter of the week?
Someone who hasn't fought in about 3 years, probably.
Victor Ortiz. Fucking hell. Victor or fucking Ortiz, man. Jesus Christ. And who else forgot? 2 seconds. Thought I had another one there.
I've got one.
Okay, on you go.
Go, Rob.
Michelle Joy Phelps.
Just
say you did it, like. Just say you did it. No big deal. We all do it. Just say you did it.
Come on, Rob, explain. What's that all about then?
Under my overcoat, dangling free.
From 2012, like she's been all sensitive lately on Twitter anyway, hasn't she? Saying I can't believe anyone would believe I get to this position in life by whatever. But I'm not interested in that. But apparently she was putting out some tweets about her taste in the bedroom, like, and now she's trying to say she's pulling the Al Bernstein card to say she was hacked. Get over it, will you? And now she's got off Twitter. You just did it, and that's it. Who cares? Like,
someone's hacked her Twitter account, like fucking, like, and goes back six years or whatever.
Fly and fucking Dr. Brown got a DeLorean went back to 2012 to say that she liked to have sex on Twitter. All right, Michelle, calm down.
I'll not say who sent me this message, but I got a message the other night when this was all kicking off, right? Someone mentioned to me that apparently she'd used Cougar to get access to Eddie Hearn, right? And then it was after the Takam fight, I think it was. She was seen getting into a Range Rover with 3 of Joshua's pals and him in the back of the fucking Range Rover.
Yeah, how does Mikey get? It was a Garcia connection somewhere. Anyway.
Keith Furman and all that sort of stuff, you know.
Breaking news.
Like it plays flip.
Right, I've got another one here from Willie C00. He's nominated Jonas Dobson. Chris Eubank Jr. reminds me of Mike Tyson, says Jonas Dobson. Chad Hogan sent that one in as well. Just trying to scroll down here as well. Let me see. Porky Ross is calling Phil Taylor a nonce. Okay. He's nominating Tony Bellew and Spencer Fearon for the Buatsi-Holyfield Ward comparison last week. Oh, I have another few actually that I've forgotten to throw in while I'm at it. Nomination for Anthony Joshua. I forgot about this. Last week during the Okoli, who was he fighting? Chamberlain fight. They went to Anthony in the crowd and trying to get a bit of fighter's insight, What will both of these fighters need to do differently now? Anthony, looking for some tactical analysis, and Joshua said, only God knows what they are thinking right now. I mean, what type of bullshit is that? Like, I mean, you know what I mean?
I hate these. I hate this shit when they go, I like to thank God, or God told me this and that. Just fuck off.
Well said, Andy. Dave, do you have any nominations?
Yeah, just one. It goes with the PBC. It goes along with that Fighter of the Week bullshit. They just tweeted earlier today in all caps, showmanship, and just put a picture of Danny Garcia in black and white wearing this stupid, I don't know, it's like a Puerto Rican mask, and hashtag this is boxing. You're trying to hype up a fight with him in fucking Brandon Rios, another cherry pick. I mean, I let him have it for that one. I can't stand it.
I love when Danny Garcia comes out of those masks or whatever, because there was such a great meme about 3 years ago, whenever he fought Salka, and they had Danny Garcia coming out in the mask, and it was right around the time that what's the movie where for one night?
Oh, the Purge.
Yeah, the Plague. So So somebody made a meme or whatever with Danny Garcia coming out in the mask and against Rod Selka, and they're like, for one night, murder is legal. Oh shit, that shit was great.
I remember a fighter coming out once. He was fighting John O'Carroll. I can't remember who it was. It was a Liverpool fighter. He came out to that with the mask on, the Purge, and it played the music, for one night only. It was really good, actually. I can't remember that guy's name. Anyway, we'll not lose any sleep over that. Final one from me. I've been meaning to nominate this for a couple of weeks, and I forgot all about it. I was watching an IFL video of the Scottish press conference for Josh Taylor announcing the Humberto Soto fight, and Barry McGuigan came up with a triple header of offences in this IFL video, so I'm gonna call him out over this one. First of all, he corrected Craig Stephen, who said that Soto was a 2-weight world champion. Barry said he was in fact a 3-weight world champion because he won an interim title at another weight. And then secondly, Barry went on to describe Humberto Soto as being fresh, despite the irony of a podgy 37-year-old Soto sitting next to him with a comb over, being 21 years into his pro career, approaching his 79th bout, and not having fought since October 2016. Fresh is not the word that I would have used to describe him. And thirdly, a minor one, this, he then said Soto had only been stopped once by Lucas Matisse, when he was in fact also stopped in 2000 by Hector Marquez. 3 nominations for Barry. Any other final ones before we finish up?
Steve, is Josh Taylor really fighting Humberto Soto?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That is cancer.
What's wrong with that, man? Humberto, I heard that Humberto's quite fresh, actually.
I want Josh Taylor to leave Barry immediately and go with
Josh Taylor's a
Bob.
good fighter. He's fighting. I remember in 2010 or whatever, he was fighting Urbano Antelone or whatever, who never fought again, and he gave him a fucking hell of a fight. Jesus, I didn't even know Soto was still fighting.
He is, he's fighting Taylor in March.
He was really good in his time, but his time is way past.
Yeah, when John Guzman gave him a beating.
That's outrageous. I mean, he's so much better than that. Oh my God.
Right, I'm going for the PBC for Victor Ortiz, I think. Who are you going for, Rob?
Not really. Yeah, we'll go with that one too. Victor, straight off of Dancing with the Stars, Fighter of the Week. We give him that one.
Andy, who are you picking?
Vicky Ortiz.
Ozzy?
Benson.
Donny.
You know what? I want to literally, like I said before, I don't dig what he does in terms of his basically his corrupting of the journalistic craft. But I want to just pick Benson right now so that he can win the Belly of the Week, so that maybe Ozzy will shut up about him. I don't want to hear about him anymore. Shut the fuck up. All right, this guy Ozzy, with all due respect. We all change our votes and vote for fucking Michael Benson so that Ozzy will shut the fuck up about him.
He won a Pulitzer Prize, didn't he? He won a Pulitzer Prize, man.
You know why? We need to wait because obviously there's going to be a response to this, Ozzy. I think there's going to be a response to the blowback he's getting today. So I think we should hang on another week. I think he might win it next week.
No, I think he needs it now.
Right, come on, Dave.
And by the way, like I said, I'm not disagreeing with anything Ozzy's saying. But every fucking moment of oxygen on this podcast that is taken up by Michael Benson is a wasted moment. I'm tired of him. Let's just give him the Belly of the Week and be done with him. He needs it bad.
Come on, Dave.
So
I'm still mildly entertained by the whole Benson fiasco. I think that the whole statement thing, though, is a good time for him to finally just get it and fuck off. Because people are pretty. I hate to use this word. In most contexts, but people are woke to who he is and what he does. I don't think his relevance is that.
Okay, I'm changing my vote. Let's give it to him.
Benson.
Hey.
Well done, Mike. You got 4 votes to 2. You are the Belly of the Week. Congratulations. Right,
actually, seriously, I really do hope that MTK makes it to his house. I really do. Whatever.
I need to get Ozzy's response to that winner, though.
No, I really do.
I think it's a proud moment, a real proud moment in asylum history.
Donny, let him do his speech. Shut up a minute. Go on, Ozzy.
Okay.
Well, I'm actually speechless. It's about time. He's received several nominations, and I think he's brought it on himself, and he's a worthy winner. I'll try and pull something together and make a little award, and I'll send it to TalkSport HQ.
Well done, Michael Benson, for winning the Bellew of the Week. And if you want to come on, you're more than welcome.
We should send him a copy of Cyrano de Bergerac.
Send him a copy of 7 Year Anal.
That would be good, yeah.
Right, that is as good a place as any to leave it. Thank you to Donny Baseball, to Dave the Hater Lowback, Ozzy Smith, Rob Kelly, Andy Patterson. Also to Adam Smith was on with us, Ben Faruqi was on very briefly. And a thank you to our guest, Ross Cooksey. Seems like a long time ago since he was on the show right at the top of 8 o'clock. We also had on Michael Jennings, great to hear from him, Terry Dooley, and of course, Judi Fitzgerald. We're going to be having Judi on every week, I think, for Judi's view on the boxing world. So look forward to that. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been your host, Steve Wellings. We've had a fun one this week. Hope you enjoyed it as well. We shall catch you all next week. Bye.